Cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the.
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I got to give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
On a league, check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves.
What up? What up? What up, world? We are back for part 2 of the week 6 start sit. Try to say that 3 times fast. We're here on Get Right Fantasy Network. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm Rasta, aka Anthony. We're gonna flip it around this time because everyone calls me Rasta. I'm here with my good buddy Phil Ruskin from the Extra Point, one of our newest additions here this offseason to the Get Right Fantasy Network. Man, how you doing, Phil? Man, week 6. This is gonna be an interesting show.
Week 6, man. It's wild that it's already week 6, but here we are, and we're getting into bye weeks. We're getting into injuries. We're getting into all the good stuff, man. Playoff. I mean, look, we went on the road last night to Seattle and won, and that was a big old win for us. So
it got dicey there for a second. I'm a little upset that one of the 2 Metcalf touchdowns didn't count because, not going to lie, I do have a lot of DK Metcalf. Obviously represent the NFC West a little bit. But yeah, man, it was definitely a good game last night, man. So congratulations. We needed it, man. I was getting scared too because it was the same situation. We're not even supposed to recap this game, but as Niners fans, we got to talk about it.
We got to talk for 2 minutes. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we'll get into it real quick. But were you tripping too? And I hated when the announcers started talking about it. Oh, they did the same thing against the Rams and Cardinals, and they lost. And oh my God.
I texted you on the group chat last night, and I was like, thank God we won. But when it got to 23-17, fuck, I was like, here we go again. So,
there it goes, man. So we pulled it off, man. Nothing better than that. And there's nothing better when your team wins on Thursday and you're just going to sit through Sunday. You already got the W for the week, and you could just take in all the football, man. So that's good stuff. So I'm excited, man. We're going to get into these things here. But before we do, why don't you tell the folks, that, again, might be new to us. We are growing here. We just hit 1.3 thousand subscribers. So appreciate that's all because of you guys supporting us, man. So hopefully we're on our way here to 2,000 here pretty soon. But yeah, man, why don't you tell them what we got going on here on the network?
Yeah, man. So on Mondays, we're going to have the recap show every single week. And that's going to be with you and our boy Frank. On Tuesdays, you can catch Tycoon as he hosts the Fantasy Boardroom. On Wednesdays, you can catch my brand new show, which is going to be all about Dynasty. We're going to be talking about trade targets. We're going to be talking about long-term plays, buy, sell, hold. And then, of course, you can go ahead and stay tuned right after my show concludes as we jump into our normal Wednesday show, buy low, sell high. Thursday is my Extra Point show, DFS and Underdog, higher or lowers, getting you ready and primed for Thursday night football.
For sure. And then, of course, we're here with you on Fridays, as you saw, or maybe you're seeing for the first time. We do part 1 and part 2. We break the game slate in half. We go over the games, let you know who we're starting, who we're sitting. We'll discuss them, and then we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Anything that we can't answer here tonight, especially with all the injuries that are going on, especially with this Monday night game. When we get into that, like, I don't even know what we're going to really say. There's not too much to say because everyone's it's a couple doozies here. But Classic Mike, who you saw in the first hour or the first show, he'll be with you here Sunday mornings. Giving you those active, inactive players and the last minute start sit decisions that you need to make leading right up to kickoff. And then we do it all again for week 7, man. So we're grinding over here at Get Right, man. Make sure you guys are dropping a sub or hit that like button. Give us a sub. Make sure you guys get in the description. So subscribe to my boy Phil's channel here over at the Extra Point. I'm sure he'll get it in the chat if he hasn't already.
Is there?
So you're already on top of it. It's like we've done this once or twice already.
Yeah.
So make sure you check that out. Throw them a sub. And then, of course, make sure you support all of our other affiliate channels here on Get Right Fantasy Network. So without any further ado, let's roll those sleeves up, man. Let's get these games started. I guess one last second. Drop us a super chat if you want us to get to your question right away. But if not, still drop your question now because we will get to it in the live Q&A section at the end of the show. But again, super chats get you right to the top of the list. All right, man. So let's do it. Game 1 on our slate. Colts coming in 2-3 against these Titans coming off the bye, who are 1-3. We had I got to check these lines because with all these injuries, man, who knows what these lines have been changing like. So we have currently Tennessee at 2.5 with a 43-point over-under. So I guess that one didn't change. We got running back Jonathan Taylor ruled out at this point. We have Anthony Richardson looking like he's going to be a game-time decision. He practiced limited Wednesday, full practice Thursday, back to limited on Friday. But I guess that was kind of the plan. Haven't got the okay yet, but we'll see what happens. Wide receiver Josh Downs dealing with that toe injury. He's listed as questionable, had a DNP Wednesday and Thursday. He's practiced full here Friday. And then Michael Pittman, who we thought was going on the IR on Wednesday, somehow pulls out this miraculous, who knows what's going on with your back. And now he's all of a sudden full practice on Friday, listed as questionable. But all signs are pointing towards him giving it a go at least. But you never know how the back could, flare up. So that's very interesting. So let's talk about it, man. I think let's start right there in the wide receiver room with the question marks with Pittman and Downs. What are we thinking about Pierce and Mitchell?
I mean, it's just a question of whether you believe Downs is going to play or not. I do think he's going to play. He's trending towards that. Looks like it with a full practice this week. We talked about him on the show earlier today in cash. If you're looking to go into a DFS lineup, how he projects really well. So I'm personally not starting Pierce. I'm not starting Mitchell. I do think if Downs plays, he's in there and you start him regardless of who the quarterback is. Richardson is a true game time decision, but I'm not playing Michael Pittman. I know they said on the last show, and not to repeat exactly what they just said, but we've been talking about it a little bit, me and Kendall on some of my shows earlier this week. But like, how do you go from an IR candidate to full practice in 24 hours?
Crazy.
So that math doesn't math. So I'm just not going to go there. I know that's probably not what people want to do or want to hear because that's probably a player they drafted to count on in their lineups. But Richardson hasn't been good. He's been a turnover machine. Tennessee's coming off the bye. The game's on the road. I think Tennessee wins this game. No Jonathan Taylor.
Wow.
I know you don't want to sit Michael Pittman, but I just don't trust it.
Dang. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's tough, but I'm right there with you, man. I can't do it. I wasn't the biggest Pittman fan anyway. I mean, I was already trying to find any excuse to get him out of my lineup. I just kind of really didn't draft him too many places, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of there with you. I have to start Pierce in a situation. It is a non-PPR league. So I think, he's kind of the player you kind of have to go with when you're facing, injuries and bye weeks. Pierce is my guy. Normally it'd be Watson, but he's pretty much hurt right now. Questionable, so we'll see, but I'm definitely probably not playing him this week. So you just, I'm hoping Pierce does catch a ball like that. 65-yard touchdown. I'll be happy. So enough of that. Let's get into these running backs here. Obviously with, excuse me, Jonathan Taylor out. How do you feel about Sermon in this matchup? He was dealing with the collarbone injury heading into this week. He was removed from the injury report. But what do you think about Sermon this week? He came through last week.
He came through last week. I think if Richardson plays, you can flex Sermon. I think if Flacco plays, you play Sermon. Flacco obviously has no rushing ability. He's not going anywhere. So I do think it's a little bit dependent on the quarterback. I'll be honest, man. I wouldn't be a little bit surprised if Steichen uses both the quarterbacks in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if I know he said Richardson's the starter and all that. If he's healthy, he's our guy, but it wouldn't shock me if they let Flacco throw it a bit and let Richardson come in on some third down, some running plays. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but again, it wouldn't surprise me at all. So you and I know you know this because we were texting about it. My rankings somehow got messed up, so I don't remember where I give you my quarterback rankings because I can move them around, but somehow my running back and wide receiver and tight end rankings did not save when I did them earlier today. So I do not remember where I have Trey Sermon, but again, I know he came through last week. If Flacco's in there, I think you play him because again, you're probably dealing with injuries. Rashad White's out. It's looking like James Cook's going to be out. We've got other guys that are on bye weeks with Kyron, so you might have to play him.
Right. And Tennessee is 20th against running backs. They've given about 16.3. So they're kind of right in the middle as far as that goes, giving up points allowed to the running back position. I have him as my running back 23. So kind of have him as that low end kind of borderline flex RB2. And again, just given the injury lane, I mean, it was so crazy doing the doing the rankings this week, because after you get like past 12 or 13, I mean, I even have like Chuba Hubbard in my as my RB12 this week, and I'm like, you would have told me this in the offseason if I had Chuba Hubbard as my RB12 actually ranked him in there. I thought you'd be crazy. So I know we're not talking about that game specifically, but just again, when it comes to these injuries, RB23 sounds kind of high. But at this point, to me, if it wasn't for the defense, I'd probably have them higher. But this Tennessee defense is going to be rested, coming off their bye week. So we'll see what happens. So let's talk about the wide receivers on the other side, or let's finish with the running backs. Tajay Spears. I mean, we're starting Tony Pollard. I think you and I are both you're starting Tony Pollard in this matchup. Indy's giving up the 10th most points allowed to the running back position. So I like that matchup for Pollard. He's been looking good as the 1A kind of in this, or even one to Spears' 2, but Spears definitely has a role. He's somewhat low end flexible. What do you think about him?
No, I think you just answered it. I think he's a low-end flex play. If that's an option, then you need to go there. I wouldn't start him in one of my running back spots, but if you're not able to find a better in PPR, if you're not able to find a better receiving option, then Spears. I would play Spears over Xavier Hutchinson this week. I know that's a name that's going to come up. It's going to come up a lot because Nico's out, but again, the wide receiver 3 in that game versus a running back with an established role. That's the kind of decision owners might be or managers might be making. I would go Spears in that kind of a situation.
There we go. Would you play Spears over Tyler Algier?
It's so hard because Algier's been arguably more involved.
Well, we're going to talk about this actually when I was doing my research for that Atlanta game. I don't know if you saw my note in there already. He hasn't had more than 10 carries or 10 touches in a game.
I know.
But when you're watching the game, it seems like he plays more than Bijan. I don't know what it is, but we'll get to that when we get there.
It's close.
What about Justice Hill or Spears?
I'd play Hill over Spears.
Okay. What about Braylon Allen?
Do I have to play the Jets? Can we stop talking about the New York Jets? I'm sick of talking about the New York Jets. I would play Spears over. I almost stopped myself as I said that.
That's a tough one.
I'm going to play Allen. The game's at home. It's Monday Night Football. The Bills' defense isn't great, and you hope that if Aaron Rodgers can figure it out, there's some points in that game. I don't know that this is a great game. I don't know that this game hits the over. Colts Titans.
Those are all guys I have around Spears, so it feels like I have him in the right spot. So there we go. All right, so enough about this game. We do got some more pieces in this one. We've got to talk about the other side. Ridley, Hopkins. I mean, I'm sitting Boyd. Anything you want to do here with Hopkins or Ridley this week? It looks like. Go ahead.
You're starting Ridley. I would prefer not to play Hopkins if it were me. It's just, what do you believe in Levis? He's the meme king right now. You know what I mean? They've lost games in laughable ways. Again, I don't know that it's a great game environment. So I think it's fine with Ridley, but I don't know that I really want to go there with Hopkins.
Okay. Yeah, even the game against Miami only played 32% snaps after kind of getting up to 46% of the snap share, but went down to 32, only 2 for 4, 31 carries, 31 yards. I'm kind of there with you as well. I have Hopkins as a sit. Indy is giving up the 8th most points allowed to the wide receiver position at 24.6. I think Ridley, that makes him a pretty decent play, but yeah, I want to see more for Hopkins first. I want to make sure he's all the way healthy. So the bye might have came at a good time.
I think this is a good Pollard week. I think it's a good Tony Pollard week. That's if you're going to play one Titan in your lineup, I think that's who you want.
Really, anyone in this game, that's pretty much all I'm playing. I mean, maybe Flacco, I might, but the Tennessee defense, no joke, man. 32nd against tight ends. They give up the least amount of points to the wide receivers. 23rd to quarterbacks. I mean, it's all red. except for that running back spot.
The Titans and the Bucks were my 2 cash plays defenses to look at in DFS. If you didn't catch my show earlier, those are the 2 that I'd play with. So there you go.
There it is. All right, so let's move on here. And remember, I didn't do the banners, darn it. That's all right.
You're all right.
So remember, if you guys have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. If you want to send us a super chat, we'll get to it right away. If not, we'll get to the questions when we get to the live Q&A segment. So we'll get into Chargers at Broncos. We got the Chargers coming in off their bye 2-2 at the Broncos, who are currently 3-2. Looks like we have the Chargers favored by 3 here on the road with the 35.5 point over under. I don't have anyone in this game as a must start. All these guys are kind of someone to talk about, question, or just full on sits. Gus Edwards is out. So let's kind of start there. I think one of the guys that is kind of playable here this week, J.K. Dobbins. But what do you feel? I actually asked you a question about him earlier in a non-PPR, which is a little different on your earlier show. But, what do you think about J.K. Dobbins this week?
I mean, I think you can play him. I think you just have to understand that this game environment's poor. It's a low-scoring game. It's a divisional game. Neither one of these teams is a playoff team, so I don't think it really matters who wins the game because the Chiefs are winning the division, and that's the end of it. So, but look, Dobbins has been good. There's no Gus now, so that makes you feel better. I don't really feel like Hamani Vidal is going to do anything except maybe spell Dobbins here and there a little bit. He's not a great pass catcher. He's a decent pass blocker, but there's not much else to him. But the rest of the guys in this game, like you said, like there's just not much here that you're like dying. I mean, like Justin Herbert, you're starting him in super flex because you have to, but I'm not going anywhere near Justin Herbert in QB in single QB leagues. That's not possible. There's not enough volume.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of there. I mean, I do have him as my RB 20. So he's, down there as a low end RB2 and again in full PPR. Like John said, he's money for 20 touches. I do like it, especially with Gus out, even though Gus's time was being, pretty much taken by Dobbins. But he's definitely going to be one of the best playmakers, I think, on this team right now. The only other one, that I think is actually Ladd McConkey. I find myself actually starting him this week. Kind of like what I've seen so far. Looks like, he's continuing to have like a nice floor and also is kind of seeing some increased usage and a snap share. I think he was up to like over 70% snaps, if I recall. What do you think about Ladd McConkey this week?
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think what Kendall and I were talking about earlier on the show, obviously it was a betting show, so it's a little bit of a different, stance. The question I have is, who is Pat Surtain going to take out of this game? Is it going to be Josh Palmer? Is he really going to go and cover Quentin Johnson? Like I made the same joke I'll make again right now, but he kind of covers himself. But I do think, yeah, touche. Ding. Keep that one in the notebook. So I do think it's a good week for Ladd. I think there's like no Gus Edwards again. You're going to see a lot of touches for Dobbins, but is there really a lot left over for Vidal? Probably not much. So if they're throwing it, who are they throwing it to? Probably McConkey in this game. Sure, could Palmer break a big play? Could Quentin Johnson break a big play? Yes, like we've seen that happen a couple times this season. We're not playing that way, but it's certainly in the range of outcomes. But I like Ladd this week. I certainly think in a 3 wide receiver league, he's startable. In a 2 wide receiver league, if you're in a full PPR, I think he's an interesting flex play for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I have him as well. While you were saying that, I probably should have went and saw where I had him. But yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is, kind of what I was, thinking as well. I just, I like what I'm seeing, and I want to try to find a way to potentially get him in my lineup. So I do have him at that wide receiver 31 this week. So yeah, that puts him right in that like kind of wide receiver 3 flex range. So we're yet again kind of thinking the same thing. So it happens from time to time. Yeah. All right. So Javonte Williams, someone who I haven't been big on, but he had a pretty decent game actually last week. I mean, I guess a blind squirrel could catch a nut every once in a while, right? I'm not kind of falling for it on our buy sell trade show. He was one of my top trade targets this week. Trying to sell off that good game if you could, because everyone knows what you're kind of thinking the first 4 weeks of the season. Is what we saw last week, is that the aberration, or is this the progression of the offense and him starting to maybe get back to where we thought he was going to be? I remember when he was going second round in startup dynasty drafts right before the injury, that year. So what do you think about Javonte?
I mean, I think you're playing him this week. I'm trying to go back and see, like, I'm looking at kind of my rankings got kicked back to the default ranking. So I know I had moved him a little bit, but like the default rankings had him at 22, right? So I am going to play him over Jerome Ford. I am going to play him over whoever the Giants running back is, because that could be a total disaster. And to be fair, some of these like spot starts, right? Like Antonio Gibson with Ramondre getting ruled out this week. Like I would still play Javonte over Antonio Gibson, some of these other people that might be waiver wire ads. So I think you can play him as a low end RB2. Again, I'll just be honest, man. I said this earlier today, and I'm going to say it exactly the same way right now. I think this is just whoever gets the ball last, and it's a field goal difference in this game, and it's probably 17-13. You know what I mean? Like it's probably 17-13, 17-16, 20-17. Like it's probably going on the under. It's not going to be a great game environment. So if you're playing these guys, I think there's one touchdown each team, and if you get that guy, then it's a good week for you. Otherwise, you're looking at a stat line of 4 to 7 points.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm hoping on the Chargers side, Dobbins and McConkey get the scores, and I'll be happy there. What about Cortland Sutton, man? Like you said, I'm sure, I have him as a sit as well. But just for the people that have him out there, he has been kind of the only guy really that's almost kind of been startable until Javonte last week. Guy. But yeah,
he's the only guy. So the hope is that you're, if you're the Nico Collins owner, you hope you have better than Cortland Sutton. You hope you have McConkey so you can get him in there, right? If you're someone like me who's finally excited to put AJ Brown and Devonta Smith back in the lineup, it means I don't have to play Cortland Sutton this week. Thank God, right? So I think it depends what your wide receiver room looks like, but Sutton is a sit for me if you can afford to.
Okay. Who else we got in here? I mean, we're sitting Bo Nix, we're sitting Palmer, we're sitting QJ.
I'm sitting everybody in this game if I can. I'll be honest.
For the most part.
Unless I'm forced into a decision where I have to play these guys, this is a game that I don't want any part of.
Yeah, to me, Dobbins and McConkey are my two, and maybe that's just because I'm personally invested.
No, I agree with that. I would agree with that as well. I mean, that's okay. I think that's
if you are going to grab someone, those might be the two. All right, so we'll move on here. Let's talk Steelers. Let's talk Raiders. I got the Steelers coming in 3-2, at the Raiders coming in at 2-3. We had it in. Let me just want to make sure I have these lines still correct. We have Pittsburgh still favored by 3 with a 36.5 point over under. Obviously a lot of information in this game. Devontae Adams is out. We got a new starting quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. We have Michael Meyer. He's out. Jalen Warren's doubtful, even though he kind of came in as questionable here at the end of the week. It's just a weird injury week with people being like written off and then miraculously okay towards the end of the week. Cordell Patterson's out. So the only guy I have here as a must start is Brock Bowers. We kind of agree there. And what do you think about Justin Fields keeping this job over Russell Wilson?
I think in a super flex league, you're going to start Justin Fields. You're going to hope the rushing upside is there. Christian Wilkins just went on IR, so that opens up a big possibility. Max Crosby's a game wrecker, but other than that, the defense isn't great. I'm not going to play Fields. It's the one thing I can check is my quarterback rankings. Here we go. As soon as it comes up, my computer being real slow right now. I have Justin Fields just outside the top.
Still living in mobile hotspot right now. There you go.
Bro, I'm serious. Like, I don't know what's going on today, but
it's all good. We can hear you nice and well. It's all good.
That's all that matters, bro. That's all about the voice. I got a face for radio. That's what they say. So I think at the end of the day, I have him just outside Fields, the top 12. So I'm not going there in single quarterback. Again, this is another really stinky game environment. I think it hits the under. We watched that game last week with Dallas and Pittsburgh. I know it was in Pittsburgh, but I can't go there with Fields. I do think it's an interesting week for Pickens. I do think at some point they're going to try and throw long and try to actually get the ball into his hands, and that's something they've been talking about. I think that happens. So Pickens for me is somebody you could play as a wide receiver 3 or put into that flex spot and just hope and pray that he finally catches the big one. But I'm going to just spend 30 seconds on this, man. I'm sitting Najee. I'm there with you. I just can't. Everybody keeps saying, "Well, there's no Jalen Warren, but there hasn't been Jalen Warren this season
for weeks." Yeah,
and Najee doesn't get it done. Like it just.
And how come 79-year-old Cordell Patterson looked much more explosive and better than him?
Well, and he's out this week too. part of Patterson. So like I get it. Najee's the only guy in town, and we want volume. We always chase volume, but like I'm sitting him. I'd rather play Javante. I would play last game. I'd play Javante over Najee. That's where I'm at. It's not pretty, but that's what I would do. Because he just can't seem to get it done. This offense doesn't seem to be able to move. And I don't expect there to be a ton of points in this game with Aiden O'Connell coming in, with Jacoby Myers banged up, no Devontae Adams. There's really no way that I see a shootout happening in this game. So I just don't think either team's going to have to do much to really keep pace.
And of course, just because you said that, this is going to be the 42-35 game of the week.
100%. 100%. Of course. Yeah. I just jinxed it into the universe.
You just jinxed it for sure.
But in reality, this should be another who gets the ball last. And this could be a field goal, kicking it towards that big giant flame there in Vegas to win the game.
There you go. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. Don't really need to spend too much more time on this. I'm sure people have the one name we didn't kind of mention that's somewhat relevant, Myers, but I just assume with, nothing really going on, you're not even, really trying to flex him either.
No,
of course,
Pickens is really Pickens is really the only player that I actually want to play in this game. And look, I get it. There's some people out there that are going to have to play Najee, and you're just hoping and praying that he falls in the end zone and Fields doesn't steal the rushing touchdown from him. That's your hope.
And he
hasn't
yet. And he hasn't even done that yet.
Stay away.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I do want to mention on this, are you anything fantasy wise relevant in regards to kind of his reduced snaps? Them saying like he's kind of showing lack of effort. Maybe they're trying to punish him. Any validity into that you think, or they said maybe they're trying to keep him fresh. That's why I kind of stayed away from Pickens in the first place. Remember in the offseason, I was just kind of saying, I just don't like the guy as a player, like just that, that diva factor, I guess, kind of turned me off on him, which is, why I wasn't big on him.
I'm with you. I mean, obviously, people that listen to this show regularly know that you and I think very, very similarly. I'm not a big Pickens guy as well. I don't have I think I might have one share of him in a dynasty league, and that's about the only place I have him. Yeah. So
a couple best ball, yeah.
Well, best ball, because that's exactly where he needs to live.
Yeah.
He's a better Gabe Davis, right? So what I will say is there is some I believe in Mike Tomlin. I believe everything that comes out of that man's mouth for the most part.
Right.
He is the one coach. I tweeted it out last week after the game because he had some brilliant quotable lines there in his interviews. But Mike Tomlin is the coach I would want to play for if I was in the league. So when he says that Pickens is going to get reduced snap, I believe it.
There you go. Just a quick question here. And again, make sure you guys drop your questions in the chat. We will get to them in our live Q&A segment. If you do want to drop us a super chat, we'll get to it right away. Unless it's a question that we see and we can kind of incorporate it in the game breakdown that we're doing, like this one here. What are we kind of doing with Devontae Adams? I mean, I know we're kind of talking start sit tonight, but just kind of quickly, since I don't have you on the Wednesday show, buy, sell, or hold Devontae Adams.
You have to hold him until you know what's happening. I mean, if he goes to the Ravens, that changes things. If he goes to the Jets, that changes things. It's very clear that he's not going to be playing for the Raiders. I think that's about the only piece of information we all can agree on at this point. But, we did a whole segment of like, if he goes to the Saints, if he goes to the Chiefs, like the noise seems to be around the Jets and the Ravens right now. But I think you have to hold him until he lands somewhere, unless you just really want to call your shot and try to get him on the cheap. And I don't know if I'm the Adams owner that I'm just going to give him away for nothing. I would wait to sell if I'm selling so that I know where he's going, so I can set at least a price. So I think you hold.
Yeah, because I mean, anywhere almost is better than the situation he's at now, right? I mean, it can't get too much worse.
And I would add just this quickly, like, is the hamstring really hurt? Is it not? No. Is this and I don't think it is. I think it's I don't want to.
Earlier in the week, you said that he would be healthy to put it out there for the teams that were trading for him. If he needed to play week 6, he could go. So
I also heard him say that he would retire if they traded him to the Saints. And I was like, but that's your boy. That's your boy. So
didn't he ask
for
that? Like, I thought that's where he asked.
You came to the Raiders to play with your guy, and now you don't want to play with your boy. Anyway.
I don't know why he didn't go to Kansas City. That's so crazy. Anyway,
what a Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, there you go. And I like Tay, man. I actually like him. He went to the Raiders. It's kind of like, really? You're really testing my ill here. But we'll see. All right, so we'll move on here. Let's get into the Falcons at Panthers. You got the Falcons coming in 3-2 off that haymaker of a day that Kirk Cousins threw out there. I know you took the under on his passing yards, and he goes and has a career night on Matt Ryan's Ring of Honor inductee night, surpassing the guy on his night breaking his record. That was kind of wrong. He should have took a knee, or they should have brought another quarterback in or something right when he got close to that. I don't think
Captain
they should have let him get it. But either way, Kirk takes over. He says it's my town. You got the Panthers 1-4. Atlanta's favored by 6, 47.5 point over under. They haven't even opened up the 21-day practice window yet for Brooks. We were talking about Hubbard earlier. He is the RB9 overall right now. I have him as a must start. I know last week you didn't like Bijan, but obviously going up against this Panthers, I think we have to start Bijan. And if he doesn't do something here, then I think that's when the panic alarm sounds. So definitely,
if he doesn't do something this week, I will be driving to his house and knocking on the door and saying, "Excuse me, we're going to have a conversation, me and you. Come outside now."
I'll say let's just try to go get Arthur Smith back, because it felt like he was at least doing more with Arthur Smith. That's how bad it seems now. All right, no worries. Oh man, but that's how bad it seems right now. On a little bit better side, Drake London looks like he kind of had a little breakout last week. Mooney kind of went crazy. Pitts finally had a good game. Granted, I think it was 59 pass attempts. So these guys all aren't going to eat every week. But what are you thinking? With some of these other guys, Tyler Algier, Deontay Johnson. Are these anyone that you're trying to get in your lineups here? Some of these auxiliary pieces.
So Deontay Johnson is a start for me. I know he's got the ankle injury, but he had the ankle injury last week and he played through it. He's just seeing too many targets. He's seeing double-digit targets every single week from Andy Dalton. He is clearly their focal point of that offense right now, other than Chuba, right? There's not another pass catcher there. Thielen's gone. Xavier Legette pops up every now and again, but doesn't do much. And so, yes, I do want to start Deontay Johnson. I'm not starting Algier. We just talked about it a couple minutes ago, saying it feels like he's on the field more than Bijan is, but he hasn't scored a touchdown this season. He's not getting enough run to really produce enough numbers and volume. So it's not somebody that I'm starting. It's not even somebody that I'm flexing. But Kirko Chains, put him in there, baby.
Get him in there. Get him in there. He says. Yeah, there you go. There.
I think here I'll tell you. I do, right on the cusp. I was
going to say, I know you have your QB rankings, so at least
I got him as the QB 12 this week. So
there you go. So Kirk, I have at 13, so we're not too far off there.
Yep,
not too far off. I have Goff, Purdy, Mayfield, Stroud ahead of him. Do you have one of those guys behind him?
I have Stroud behind him.
Really?
New England is yes.
You don't think he just
without Nico, you got to look at this. I don't remember whose show, if it was.
We have this game on ours. We don't have this game.
Nico,
yeah, let's talk about it.
Without Nico, that offense is Matthew Berry. It was Matthew Berry talking about it this week earlier that he had some interest. I don't have the numbers. I should have grabbed them for this show actually, but without Nico in the offense, that Stroud has struggled. So I do have him at QB 13. He's gonna be fine. I don't have a problem starting Stroud. I'm starting him in the league. But
Tank kind of popped off when Nico was missing some time.
Let's go, Tank! I'm so excited for Tank in my lineup.
Yeah. I got some pieces of him too. Shout out to Scott Fishbowl. He's starting him there as well. All right, so let's get back to this Falcons and Panthers game. That was a little hot fire you spit out there with CJ Stroud down that low. Not even a QB1 this week. Can't do it. I like it. All right, so Cousins we're starting. Algier sounds like you have him as a sit. Deontay I have as my wide receiver 24, so he's a start for me. I have Ray as a sit. The tight end Trimble or whoever's in there, Jatavian, I have both of them as sits. Anyone else you want to talk about in this game? Are you ready to move on?
That's it. Let's move on. That's it.
All right, let's do it. Before we do, let's tell you about our guys over at Underdog. For those of you who don't know, it's the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. Of course, they're well known for their best ball drafts. Of course, their flagship tournament, the Best Ball Mania 5 this year, their big time best ball tournament. For those of you who don't know what best ball is, it's basically you draft a team and kind of set it and forget it. No waivers, no trades, no setting your weekly lineups. It allows you to draft hundreds of teams during the offseason. One of the things I like the best about it is it really helps prepare you for your redraft leagues. Just kind of gets you a better drafter, understanding your ADP. So I really like doing it for that. So make sure you guys go sign up. Use that promo code Underdog when you do, and you will get a $1,000 bonus cash, 50% deposit match. It's a lot more than I think you and I got our little $100 when we first started. But take advantage of it, man. Use that promo code Get Right, supports the show, and get your bonus cash. And on top of that, you will get a free pick'em. I believe this week it is. Oh no, that's the Purdy one from yesterday. I think it's Pat Mahomes over under half a yard this week. I don't know. I have to check it out. But either way, you're going to get a free pick when you sign up. So make sure you guys use that.
Can't be Mahomes.
Oh yeah, no, because he's off on a bye week too. That was last week. All right, I need to get in there. I forgot that was one thing I didn't do on the.
I didn't get one, but I also have I got the special badge, and I don't know if they give me those anymore.
Oh man, no, they got a ton of promos going on, man, with their multiplier bets for their pick'em and things like that. So just make sure you guys go check them out, man. They're growing a lot of new games in there. Doing their higher lowers, their rivalry picks. It's a lot of fun. So make sure you guys go check them out. UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code Get Right. All right, so we'll move on here. Let's talk about the next game. And again, make sure you guys are dropping your questions in the chat. We are getting them. What's up, Ray? We have them starred here, so we will get to them. If you want us to answer them right away, you could drop us a super chat. If not, just hang around, and we'll get to it in the live Q&A segment when we get done with these next 3 games. So what do we have here? Lions coming off their bye, 3-1. Against these Cowboys coming in 3-2. We have Detroit favored by 3 with a 52-point over-under. Basically start them all, right? I mean, we're pretty much starting.
Can we just talk about this game for the rest of the show? That's all I want to do.
Yeah, no, this is definitely the game of the week, I probably would say. Hopefully it lives up to that standing. A ton of fantasy, players, in here. We're starting Goff, Gibbs, Demont, Elmon. I mean, you're starting all the guys you think you should start.
Start them all.
Let's talk about some of these other guys, though. Rico Dowdle. That's where I want to start. What are your feelings with Rico?
So there's a caveat to what I'm about to say. And the caveat is because there's so many running back injuries and because James Cook is a very serious potential to miss the game, and he's a Monday night game, which means you may not have the option to sit him. I don't want to play Dowdle. Hutchinson is legit, but that front for the Lions looks really freaking good. Really good.
Second best.
And I don't care that this game's on. Yeah, and I don't care if this game's on the road. That makes no difference. It's Goff in a dome. The Lions. It's basically like playing a home game minus the fans because it's the same setup, right? So I don't want to go there with Dowdle. With that said, my rankings are frozen, but I had him in my top 24 simply by default because guys are out, right? Or there's better. So it's like I think you, unfortunately, if you're that manager that has Dowdle and you don't have a choice, I think you're going to have to play him. I just don't know what you're going to get from it. I don't expect him to score a touchdown unless he just falls in from the 1 yard line. I know he's been getting the lion's share of the work. Zeke's snap share has been going down every single week. He's almost non-existent at this point.
Now, yeah.
And Deuce Vaughn doesn't get in that much. So it is Dowdle's backfield. The problem is like
Ludkey or Lodekey. He's like
the big full. He's a fullback. I think is actually his actual position.
Yeah, that's right.
I think he scored the touchdown.
Yeah, he scored the
last week or 2 weeks ago.
Touchdown. He's only scored 2 passing touchdowns in the last 2 games.
Right. So
receiving.
So that
passing.
Again, kind of making my point. Like I don't want to go there, but I think you're going to have to. Again, hope he falls in the end zone or hope he catches one.
Yeah, I mean, he played 50% of the snaps. That's it. But on those 50% of the snaps, he got 20 carries, 87 yards. So you like the usage at least. And again, he went from 8 to 11 to 20 as Zeke has been fading out. And again, not really seeing much. 1 for 1 for a 15-yard touchdown, 2 for 2 for 27. And another touchdown, in the air. So, I mean, at least they will throw it to him. It seems like every once in a while with Dak.
And that's his value. So in a PPR format, if you are stuck with playing him this week, then that actually makes you feel a little tiny bit better. But if you're in a half or in a standard, gosh. Yeah.
It gets tough. Yeah. So definitely feel a little more comfortable playing him there. And again, maybe in this type of game with this, point expectancy, maybe, they have to use him a little more in that passing game, maybe kind of as an extended running game, maybe with some screens and things like that, just to, because of Hutchinson, right? Like you got to get the ball out or dump it off. And, so I personally kind of like him this week. I have him as my RB21. So, again, but that's only, like you said, kind of by default. We're talking, we're talking after that. I have Tyrone Tracy and Sermon and Jerome Ford and Javonte Williams, maybe I was a little down on Javonte, but but it's kind of like that area. So it's like, what do you kind of do? So like you said, you're almost kind of forced to start him depending on your situation. But yeah, Detroit's third best against running backs, 17.6 points allowed per game to the running back position. So yeah, I mean, you try to avoid it if you can.
Yep.
On the other side or same side of the ball, Jalen Tolbert. He's kind of been the hot name, obviously, with Cooks going on IR. Somebody needs to catch passes opposite of CD. I personally think it's Ferguson, who I have as a must start as well. I know you're a big Ferguson guy, yeah. And so, but what do you think about Tolbert? Quick take.
I think if it's a deeper league, you can go there as a flex because you're right. Someone has to catch passes. He was 10 targets last week. He went 7 for 87 and scored the touchdown. If this game hits the over, and we do think it is going to get close, we're praying that this game delivers on what we think it's going to be. 52.5, I think, is what the line opened at. I think it's been bet down half a point to 52. So it's holding pretty strong right there. And there's always the caveat that Lamb doesn't catch a touchdown. And if CD doesn't catch a touchdown and they do throw one, it's going to be Ferg or Tolbert at that point. And you have to live in that world where it could, or Dowdle, right? It could go that way. So here's where I'm going to start Tolbert. In 3 wide receivers and a double flex. If you're in that kind of a league, that's where I would play him. Otherwise, I'm not going there. It's just it is too thin because, again, look what Dak does every week. He hyper targets CD, and that's kind of what we expect this game to be.
Right. And shout out to Jeezy, man. Glad you're safe over there dealing with that hurricane. Says he hopes to have power in time to watch that Detroit game because it is a must see. So we're hoping for you, man. I hope you're staying safe down there, my guy. But yeah, everyone else, keep dropping your questions in the chat. We are starring them here. We will get to them in the live Q&A segment. So hang in here with us. You can always drop a super chat and we'll get to it right away. But yeah, so we'll keep going here. Jameson Williams, I think this is an interesting play. Normally he's kind of like, you want to get this guy in your lineup. But I don't know if you kind of spoiled I know you see the show sheet here, but kind of interesting for those who didn't know. Diggs, Bland, he's looking like to make his return, and Lewis, their nickelback, they're going to play together for the first time. So, this could be a scary secondary here on the back half of the season. Bland set the all-time interception record last year. We know what Diggs can be. He's still making his way back. We're 6 weeks into this thing now. And then of course, Lewis coming over and making a big impact here. So does that scare you at all with Jay Will, or are you still finding a way to get him in your lineup?
I think you still have to get him in your lineup because the truth about Jameson Williams is the same as that it has always been. When he is healthy, he's a home run hitter, he's a big threat, or he basically takes himself out of the game, regardless of, and this is the key point, regardless of who's covering him. So you and I talk about this all the time. You've got to play for upside. You've got to go and try and win your week. Unless your team is just freaking loaded, there is not a player on your bench that is going to give you the upside ceiling that Jameson Williams can give you. Mm-hmm. Like I said, unless you just have, no running backs and you just have the best wide receiver room in your league, it's not going to happen. So yeah, you play him and you hope that he does what he always does and catches the big long one. And if he doesn't, it's probably what he would have given you anyway. So yeah, I think he's in there.
And the thing that does make him scary is, remember, after weeks 1 and 2, he goes 5 on 9 targets, 5 on 11 targets. Gets the touchdown in week 1, 24 points, 14 points week 2, went on those 11 targets and 79 yards because it is a deep A dot. Then you see what his floor can be. Against Arizona, only goes 1 on 3 targets for only 9 yards. But then this is the perfect thing. 2 catches here against Seattle for 80 yards and a touchdown. And still gets you 16 points on 2 touches in the entire game. So I mean, you feel better off if you're flexing him. I definitely feel comfortable with him as a wide receiver 3. And some situations he might be your 2, and I don't hate that either. And I think he's just expanded his game a lot. He isn't just that 9 route guy anymore. Again, they've been using him in the proper way. They've coached him up. So just shout out to them. And he is literally, like, I think, well, now with Xavier Worthy in there and A.D. Mitchell, I think he's literally top 5 fastest guys in the league. Like, this guy has Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, top speed. He was behind those 3 when he was a rookie, when he came in. And then obviously we added Xavier and AD Mitchell now. So
Well, don't forget the king, because apparently the boy can still rumble there, mister. Did you see that stat that they had him clocked higher than Xavier Worthy on that 87-yard touchdown, King Henry 2 weeks ago?
Really? No, I mean, I know he had a top speed, but I didn't really put the comparison.
His
together.
top speed was like 22.1, and they were making comparisons to Xavier Worthy. I'm like, that's a 30-year-old running back, and 200 plus pounds.
He was churning dirt.
Oh, big man.
Hey, he ran away from them. They looked like they were running fast, and he was just.
He was
Yeah,
like, excuse me, little boys. I will just bring it back to this. We'll finish with this before we move on. If all those corners do come back and they're healthy, you still have to deal with Amon-Ra. I get it. They're going to take away Jameson Williams. He's the home run hitter. But at the same time, like, who's the bigger threat? And that's certainly Amon-Ra. Plus, you know as well as I do, we've seen it a bunch of times. You got to deal with Laporta, and they can line Monty up in the backfield and still have Gibbs on the field. So I know the backfield's not going to affect the cornerbacks, but the corners are going to have to deal with Amon-Ra.
Lewis. Yeah, Lewis is going to be on Amon-Ra. I mean, this is going to be good. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be good.
Yeah, so there is a possibility.
Can't wait for this game. This is going to be a good game.
Please don't disappoint. Please make this happen.
This needs to be 40-35 or something.
Give us that Rams Chiefs game from Mexico City 3 years ago. That was 58-52 or whatever that scoreline was. Remember when Jared Goff? That was the best, man.
Oh man, we're due for another one of those.
That was
or even just another Baltimore Cincinnati, man, like last week. Like we'll take something like that, little OT, make it happen. All right, good stuff. All right, man. So let's move on here. Speaking of the Cincinnati, we have the Bengals coming in at 1-4 at the Giants, who are 2-3. I think I heard Kendall on the show earlier saying someone needs to follow Joe Burrow around and just whisper that he's 1-4 in his ear.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what he was saying?
That was what he was saying.
Yeah. So kind of light a fire under him.
Yep.
Let's see those fireworks again, man. Giants coming in at 2-3. Cincinnati's favored by only 3.5. 47.5 point over under. Interesting enough, Giants have actually looked kind of decent here these last couple of weeks, even without Neighbors. Just this last game, he's out again with the concussion, his second consecutive missed game. And remember, he played on Thursday night 2 weeks ago, so it's like he's had even a couple extra days and still not ready. So that's starting to get a little worrisome when you have someone out, that long. And then on the other side of the ball, same side of the ball, Devin Singletary dealing with that groin issue. He's questionable. He's considered a game time decision. Of course, Sunday night, you might have to make, your decision right away, unless you have that auto sub feature on in Sleeper where you can, auto someone out. So check your leagues and make sure if you do or don't have that. Sometimes you have to start someone at the same time or later. But there's some leagues where you can start someone that already played. And if he ends up, out, then it'll sub that other guy in. So make sure you check that setting in your league. It is out there. That's a thing now we have to deal with. But yeah, so for the most part, unless you have Tyrone Tracy, that's the only way I'd probably even feel comfortable waiting on Singletary, if that were even the case. And the only reason you're doing that is because this Cincinnati defense is just in shambles right now. So let's talk about the running backs here in this game. Chase Brown, he's kind of been the hot name. Of course, we had him on the thumbnail here tonight, dealing with that quad issue earlier in the week. Looks like he's going to be good to go, even though he's officially listed as questionable. And then Zach Moss, who we thought probably would maybe miss this game or even the rest of the last game, he came back. He was, I believe, limited. But then, by the end of the week, he's practicing and was completely removed from the injury list. So it looks like it will still be somewhat of a split. But do you see Chase Brown maybe starting to take the lead role here? I mean, he has kind of looked like the more explosive back.
It's funny because I just pulled the metrics. Like the snap share is not there to suggest that, but you're right. What do your eyes tell you when you watch the game? He looks more explosive. He's in there on the more important downs. Like he does look like he's kind of gaining steam and momentum to being the 1A to the 1B here for Zach Moss. So yes, I think you can play Chase Brown in this game. I think you can play Zach Moss if you've got, obviously you don't have both, I would assume, but you can play both. I just don't think it's going to be a great night for either one of them. I mean, look, once again, the Bengals are playing for their season. It seems like they've been playing for their season pretty much every week since week 2. And I think again with the way Burrow is playing right now, this is a Chase and a Higgins smash spot. So I don't expect greatness, especially with limited tags from both of these running backs. But again, I think you can play them and hope that one of them, the one that you have, you hope they get the rushing touchdown.
For sure. And I mean, we've seen Chase Brown basically is living in that 3 target range. So you're at least going to get that for your PPR players.
Yep.
So you'd like to see that. has 1 receiving touchdown on the year, 2 rushing, and only 2 games with single digit scoring, and then even has a 20-point game, 14 and a 17-point game. That's Zach Moss. So he's still involved, but like you said, he's still almost playing 70% of the snaps, even last week against Baltimore, and that was even getting hurt in the game. So, but like you said, your eye test, just Chase Brown seems like he's just ready to be let loose. But maybe he's kind of going to be like Pollard's to Zeke, a couple years back, and maybe they don't want to give him the entire role to keep him fresh. Remember how they were saying that about Pollard, just to make sure he can keep that explosiveness and just use, Moss there, which of course, as fantasy owners, we hate. So just give everyone somebody 75% of the work. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man. So I'm with you. We're starting Burrow, we're starting Chase, we're starting Higgins. Like, let's just have another game like we did last week, and everyone's happy. Exactly. But let's talk about the other side of the ball. I mean, we're not starting Gesicki. Eric Alls, still has too much of a role to make either one of these guys kind of startable, but you never know. When it comes to the tight end position, you might find yourself having to just throw them in just in case. But let's talk about this Giants side of the ball. Again, with Neighbors out, what do you think about Wandale and Slayton? And then obviously all in with Daniel Jones.
I mean, look, I'm not starting Daniel Jones unless it's super flex. He's not in my top 12, and I don't think that's going to be I think that's a pretty easy one to fade there. I did. I just looked. That's the only ones I could see. He's not in there. Trust me. He ain't
I was like, just to make sure you could use it, since that's the only one.
That's what I got there. Yeah. I'm not starting Wandale, even though I do think he'll have a better game than what he did last week. But then again, last week was basically nothing. So anything is better than nothing. I am going to consider Slayton here. Someone's got to catch the ball. I don't think he gets to a 122-1 again. I mean, that last week was an incredible outlier game there against Seattle. But he's got to catch the ball, and I do think he's the preferred option. He has better separation. He seems to be a better pass catcher. Wandale's just doesn't seem to create any separation right now. Like, he just kind of – it's like on the all-cardio team, right? Like, he's out there, but, like, he's just not getting targets. He's not really catching when he does get targets. So I think Slayton's pretty in that, like, low wide receiver 3 flex range for you, and I think that's what you can expect on a volume play again from Daniel Jones.
There you go. I have Wandale as my 22. And I have Slayton down here a little further. I don't know exactly, but he's kind of down there a little more. So yeah.
You have Wandale at 22.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing against Cincinnati. The defense is not great.
No, I know.
I think he's startable. I mean, in PPR, definitely not non-PPR a half, but like in full, I have him there. I mean, I have like Amari Cooper behind him. I have Olave behind him. Pickens, Wicks. Kirk with the BTJ emergence. I had Jason behind him. Maybe McConkey and Tolbert. Maybe I can move ahead of him. I probably should, which would throw him probably like closer to 24, 25. But yeah, that's kind of where I have him.
Well, that's maybe the one time we're going to disagree.
Hey, at least we got one. At least we got one. There, we got to mark the timestamp that.
On this day, October the 11th.
Yeah, we finally had a miss what do they call it, a rankings dispute.
That's right
on there. Good stuff. So what else we got here? Daniel Jones I have as my QB 18. So yeah, he's only startable in super flex, and I think that's pretty much it in this game here. So let's move on to the last game. We have Bills coming in at 3-2 at the Jets, who are 2-3. I have Buffalo by 2.5 with a 41-point over-under, dealing with, some injuries here to James Cook, dealing with the toe and foot injury. Sounds like a turf toe situation. He was DNP today, but again, they still have today's their Thursday, so we have to wait to see what happens next week. But everything's kind of pointing towards him not being active, and I think that's kind of where we're all assuming right now. I don't even have him ranked currently because I'll add him in if I hear something different tomorrow. But I'm assuming he's not in. Shakir could go either way, but not looking good either. He was a second DNP in a row. You hate to see that after missing already the last game. It seemed like he was a little closer last game, but maybe they just want to, keep him healthy here, see what we can do. Curtis Samuel, I heard Kendall say on the earlier show, it caught me off guard, which is why I remember it. He said he shouldn't even be playing football on a professional level or something along those lines. Yeah, so that made me laugh. I was never, it was crazy when he got so much steam. I was like, you guys are falling for this. Like, y'all seen it already.
Choo-choo.
exactly.
That's a hype train right there, boy.
Yeah, stay away from that. And then, Matt Collins, which I think actually is the one who might be a little interesting in this game. Of course, if, Shakir's out, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury himself. He was limited, so we'll kind of see what happens. And then, on the other side of the ball, we got Rogers dealing with a little ankle or calf or whatever you're saying it is. And then, Conklin's dealing with the hip injury. So just a lot of stuff going on with this game, which makes it tough being the Monday night game. I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if it was just, early slate on Sunday, because we know a little more right now. But, I think that kind of makes, a lot of these guys we kind of have to fade. But I mean, I'm starting Brees. I'm starting Garrett Wilson. I'd like to start Conklin. I mean, I think we'll hopefully know enough after Saturday to see if Conklin will go or not. He seems like the one that probably should go. I mean, we know Aaron Rodgers is going to go. I have him as a sit. He just hasn't been playing great. And I know you said that on your show earlier. And so, but I mean, I like those 22 targets he's throwing over to Wilson, but let's get Brees involved here. But yeah, I think the biggest controversy here, man, I've been seeing and hearing a lot of people asking, should I be starting Josh Allen? Again, limited weapons. Like, where are you at with Josh Allen? He still is the QB7 overall, but I mean, 2 of those weeks were just huge weeks. The other 3 weren't great. So, how are you feeling coming into week 6? Are you looking to play someone like Baker or, Andy Dalton or, one of these kind of hot waiver type QB2s, over basically the QB1 for the last, 3 years?
I mean, you have to I'm saying this as a rhetorical thing. Like, you have to understand roster construction, right? Obviously in Superflex, you're playing Josh Allen. We're not going to talk about that. But in single quarterback, the majority of teams, I would think, are only rostering one quarterback. So you have to play him. But if you are one of those teams, and there's plenty of them that have 2 quarterbacks, Kendall and I were talking about it earlier today from the betting side of the house. Like, it's a hard game to, first of all, to pick who wins. And if you're saying the Bills are going to win this game, then that means Josh Allen's going to win this game, because you're right. He has limited pass catching options. I just took James Cook out of my lineups. I don't have him in my lineup right now. And if I get lucky enough to put him back in there, good for me. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'm anticipating Cook missing this week. Mm-hmm. I took Khalil Shakir out of a lineup. In our Guillotine League, I took him out of the lineup, which I say it every week that I'm going out. I think this might be the week I go out. But Debo might have saved me. Debo had a big night last night, so that might have saved me. But I think we're in a place right now with Josh Allen where his fantasy value is tied to his rushing ability. And you see that, right? Because the passing volume hasn't been great. He doesn't have great weapons. And when he doesn't get the rushing numbers and he doesn't get the touchdowns, I mean, it's like seesaw with him, right? 30 points, 8 points, 27 points, 6 points. It's a nightmare.
40.
So right, exactly. Yeah, 40, 11. It's like,
I lost on the Guillotine League on the 11-point week.
Yes. So do I think you can sit Josh Allen? No, I don't think you can sit him. But I will say this. If you have Baker, if you have Jaden Daniels, because you drafted one of those guys super late, if you have Goff and you drafted them super late as your backup quarterback because you took Josh Allen in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds, I would play all 3 of those guys over Josh Allen this week because of that game environment, because of the Detroit-Dallas game environment, because of the fact that we think Washington will be chasing the game against the Ravens. And Baker's been hot, man. He's the QB2 on the season, QB3 on the season. So, I mean, it's hard for me even, and Baker, to be fair, was still good last week, and they didn't win the game, and he didn't have his best night. And I think that they're going to win that game this week. So, yeah, if you have a late round quarterback that you drafted, I think you can play those guys. Otherwise, you're hoping that Josh Allen falls in the end zone a couple times, and that's where the touchdowns come from, especially with no real threat. Because Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, I think if Cook is out, and we expect him to be out, that's a timeshare. Yeah, I think it's a 3-headed timeshare with Allen, Johnson, and Davis. Neither of those guys is really going to get more snap than the other one.
Right. I think it needs to be a Josh Allen game, right? Like, that's what you're saying. Like,
he has to win the game.
I think with Cook out, that almost makes you go, all right, if there's any time he's going to do it, it's going to be now. Because you know how Josh Allen is. Once he starts the game, if they even get behind, he's playing against Aaron Rodgers. Well, let's first and foremost say, like, let's just hope nobody else gets hurt in this game. I think you kind of mentioned that earlier. Like, playing in MetLife, like
MetLife, look out.
Yeah, like, let's just hope first and foremost we make it out of this game and everybody's safe. Yeah. But with that said, I mean, for the Bills to win this game, like, Jets defense is still pretty good. I mean, obviously coaching change, all that kind of stuff over there. We'll see. But they're decent. Sauce is still over there. Line's a little banged up a bit, but I mean, they pretty much have kind of their guys. They're still pretty decent, but I think Josh is one of those guys who'll just put the team on his back. Like that's why they had to take him out of the preseason games. Remember, once he gets going and gets hit, he's one of those guys. That's why he's QB1 overall, because he gets in that zone and you can't get him out of it. And so, that's what we hope to see, obviously, as some Josh Allen fans. So,
well, they clearly don't think that he has, to be out there when he's got a concussion. So they took he came right back in after the concussion. So, it's like, hey,
head trauma that he passed and cleared pretty quickly.
The answer to the question is Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid need to be there this week. They have to be there this week. And if they can, Coleman is obviously the riskier play because of Sauce. Because if you're telling me that Shakir misses the game, Sauce is going to take Coleman because there's just nobody else. So I think at the end of the day, it is a Dalton Kincaid week. If the Bills are going to win this game, it has to be Allen putting the team on his back, putting a Superman cape on, and Dalton Kincaid has to see 10 targets and get involved. He has to.
I think it has to be a Kincaid game because I think Sauce is taking Keon Coleman out of this game, especially when no Shakir. So if you have Coleman, fire him up.
Yep,
this is going to be the week where he needs the ball and sneaky play with Dawson Knox. You might find him finding the
interesting. Yep. 12 personnel. It's actually a really good call.
Yeah. So, really good call. So that's my 2 cents. I got to know here what our boy Kendall's talking about. He says, did I convert you on this game, Phil? And what's Ross to think about this one?
So we were talking about because we were talking earlier on the betting show. We were talking about the weekly picks and who do you pick and how many confidence points. And I earlier in the week when I did my picks had taken the Bills, and after talking to Kendall today, I was like, I might need to go take the Jets at home, and I think I'm gonna switch my pick, Buns. It's gonna be a sleep on it Saturday night, wake up Sunday morning. How do I feel? But I might take the Jets at home on this one.
There you go, man. Just everything I just said, I think I kind of psyched myself up on this being a big Josh Allen game. I think he beats Aaron Rodgers here, and makes a statement.
That's what I'd said on the earlier show, and I'm like wavering on it because I'm like because Aaron Rodgers has been bad. He's been real bad.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And Brees technically hasn't looked great either.
No,
and Wilson hasn't been great either. Again, it took him 22 targets to even kind of be relevant. So, I mean, I could see it going either way. Divisional game.
This could be 23-17. Over unders 41. 23-17 puts it at 40 and one field goal.
It's going to be like 9-3 at the half. It's going to be 9-3 at the half.
Yeah, probably.
It'll pick up in the second half. Kendall said Allen higher than 50 plus rushing yards plus anytime touchdown feels kind of nice. Not sure what the adjusted rushing yards offered are, but he likes getting in on that. So
I'm okay with that line.
Yep. He says, don't sleep on it, drink on it. So
yeah, well, there you go. All right, man.
And Tyler, I see you dropping your question in here. We are going to actually get into our start questions right now. So we're going to actually scroll back up to the top and get to the ones that we had coming in here. I think I do actually have a banner for that at least. I know I'm sorry, you guys. The ones popping in and didn't even know what game we were even talking about. I'll get the banners back in there next week. So I thought I was all prepared and everything too. I forgot that little point. All right, so go ahead, Phil, take it away.
Thomas saying, "What's up, guys? Just wanted your thoughts. Need one running back: Braylon Allen, Tyler Algier, Antonio Gibson." I think he probably looks like asked this question on the earlier show, so I'm assuming Mike and Kendall went with Gibson. That's probably where I lean as well, because technically he's the starter this week and Braylon Allen is the backup. He'll be involved, but Gibson is the starter. So I'm going to go Gibson as well.
Yeah. Obviously, had Bijan been out, which it was maybe looking like maybe he might have sat this one. But with him being available and being completely removed off the injury list, I think, and again, knowing Algier hasn't had more than 10 touches in a game, even though it felt like, he's playing so much more. I think you kind of have to just go Gibson and play the volume role, even though the quality may not be there. But I'll go Gibson as well and agree with all of this. Yeah, go ahead.
Chandler Constantino saying flex Singletary, Romeo Dobbs, or Ray Davis if Cooks is out in full PPR. That's a hard question.
I think you got to go Dobbs based on that situation, right?
I do too, and you hope that the apology for whatever he's done was sincere. Yeah. The boys said all right, and him
Squeaky
and Jordan
wheel game.
Yeah, him and Jordan Love went and had a handshake and a coffee, a breakfast and a breakfast club over some film and said let's figure it out. There you go. Yep.
And he hasn't even really been doing that bad, but let your boy cook. Jalen Reed's been going crazy. So anyway, go ahead.
Soren saying, should I go with Jordan Love over Jalen Hurts this week? Remember how I said I was so excited the fact that I could go down my rosters and put AJ Brown and Devonta Smith back in the lineup? Let's
Yeah.
go.
Fire up Hurts. That's what
Fire
that
him up,
means.
baby. Fire him
And
up.
what's funny too is Tyler Sperry's dealing with the same. He says Love or Jalen. So they have the same exact situation going on. So I'm pretty much the same way. I mean, I don't think you really can go wrong, quote unquote. If it's 4-point, I definitely lean more Hurts. If it's 6-point, I could see how you might want to go. How you might want to go Love. So I'll answer it kind of that way. But I don't think one's going to score an absorbent amount over the other. I feel they'll be within, a few points of each other.
I feel that the reason for this question is because the potential for the Eagles to absolutely demolish the Browns. Whereas Kyler could and should be able to keep Arizona. Should, but again, we saw them get blown out at home 3 weeks ago by Washington. So it was like, and then last week they come, I don't want to talk about it, but you know what happened last week. So I think that's the basis of why people are asking this question. And I do understand that, but again, from a game theory perspective, the tush push and Jalen's rushing upside is going to exceed what Love's going to do through the air.
And that's what broke the tie for me. I literally have them as my QB 4 and QB 5 this week. So that's, great question, because that's where I was. All right, where were we at? We got to go back up. You got it.
Yeah, John here saying Herbert has 0 games of 200 yards passing, averaging 144 a game this season. So his question then is, the Chargers defense or the Bears defense, who would you start?
Ooh,
this one's
defensive questions.
This one's, I won't say easy, but I do have a lean here, Rasta, if you want to take a minute to think about it.
For me, it's Bears.
Yeah.
They're just a better defense overall. Aren't they missing though their safety?
They're missing
someone.
Kendall, if you're here, throw it in the chat.
I'm sure he's there. Yeah.
What I will say is,
but I still think overall they're going to be a better defense there.
I mean, you guys know that watch the show. If you watch my shows, if you watch our main show here, like I've been out on the Jaguars all season. I've been seeing how they're trending down. But the other thing I want to just add quickly, which is very important, is they did not travel until yesterday to England. One less day to get out because the hurricane. I don't know where they were displaced to, but they couldn't get out. So one less day to get acclimated, one less day for the time change, one less day for practice preparation. So I don't think they would have won the game anyway. I still don't think they're going to win the game. I think the Bears will, but I also think that makes a big difference when you go across the pond and have to deal with a new environment. That makes a big difference. So that's the old coach in me, knowing what it takes to go and win on the road with a team.
Well said. Let's see. You got the next one?
Yep. Cap for Life says, gentlemen, what up? 14 teamer roster. We got to rewire our brains for a second. Man's league, real big man. 14 team, full PPR league, flex. Gibson, AD Mitchell, Dalton Schultz. Thoughts on Kamani Vidal? I have JK. I know where I lean. It's between 2 players. It's probably the same for you.
Yeah, to me, it's Gibson or Schultz, especially with Collins down right now.
Yeah.
I like how so I mentioned this on the trade show, or maybe it was the waiver wire show, but I liked what they were doing with Mitchell. And I'll just take a quick tangent. He had a throwing attempt, he had a rushing attempt, and more targets than he's had in the last 2 weeks. Seems like they were trying to incorporate him in the game. But with Richardson coming back, that kind of fades it just a smidge there. I want to just kind of see how they get going. To me, full PPR, I think I would take my chances with Schultz on this one.
That's what I would do.
And then just my thoughts on Vidal. I think he's going to be a healthy scratch unless something happens to, maybe with Gus being out, he might get called up. But to me, this is Gus's backfield. JK's backfield.
It's sorry. JK, yeah. I lean Schultz in this one too, with Nico being out. I know everybody wants to, say Diggs and tank to the moon and they should have great weeks, but it's Drake May's first ever game, which I do think actually strengthens the Gibson play. But again, it's like, can Drake May really push it down the field? We don't know yet. Is he going to run? We don't know yet. So if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm saying, don't let Gibson beat us this week. Right. Make Drake May beat us. If we're going to lose this game, make Drake May do it. Yeah. And that's why I would go with Schultz.
Like his first 4 plays might just literally be 0 blitzes just to see how he reacts. Like that's what I do as defensive coordinator.
What Will Anderson's going to eat? Like Will Anderson's legit defense. Houston's defense is good. They haven't been playing up to the standard we saw in the playoff run last year, but they're good. And the game is, it's at home. I thought the game was in New England. The game is in Houston. So, yeah, no Gibson for me. All right.
Go ahead.
Thomas, another one. 12-team, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. Thoughts on Keon Coleman rest of season? I'm thinking of dropping him for Ty Chandler as a stash. I've only played Coleman once this year. My other wide receivers are Evans, Debo, Tolbert, Juju, and Wicks. I'm okay with that.
Who are the running backs?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see if he has a...
Because I do like Chandler, especially we don't know how this hip is going to be technically from Aaron Jones. Like he may sit, I mean, they said all signs pointed towards it wasn't a serious, or long term, which I was surprised we even got an update this week. But even still, that just kind of shows you, one wrong hip, hit or something like that. I kind of do want to have, Chandler there. I have him stashed in several places.
I said all summer in our redraft when we were doing the grading for our redraft mock tournaments, teams that are picking up Ty Chandler, he's going to be useful because Aaron Jones, he misses time. He has never played a full season. So, I do think it's interesting who your running backs are. But since we don't know and we're just looking at this, you're starting Evans and Debo every week. You're living with the volatility of Debo. Evans is crushing it right now. You've got some other volatility here, but Juju had a great game last week, and obviously we don't expect Rice back at all. So I'm okay with this move.
For me personally, I'm actually dropping Wicks, and I want to hang on to Coleman. Okay. Especially with Watson potentially coming back as soon as this week. That might put Wicks back down. So that's personally what I would do. Is keep Coleman because again, he still has the potential to be Josh Allen's one. Especially with Shakir, if Shakir comes back, which I mean he'll be back this season, maybe not this week, per se. But as far as the long term, I want to keep my Coleman under my belt.
Well, that's perfect because that leads into kind of these next 2 questions. So Kendall wants to know, who should I play against Phil in the listener league this week? Lad. The answer to the question, Kendall, is you should play Wicks because Lad's going to have the better week and I'd like to win. So you should play. You should play Lad.
Phil says Wicks, I say Lad.
You should play Lad. Yes.
Good stuff. Go ahead.
Pavan saying, "What's up, fam? PPR." This is like the Wicks and Coleman variety hour. I think we just kind of answered this, so we would take Coleman in full PPR over Wicks.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Thomas said also thoughts he has McBride and Hawkinson potential trade of flex when he was talking about that other team.
I would keep both of those guys right now. You've obviously had Hawkinson on your IR spot for the whole season. Now that he's off of that and has been activated in his practice window, McBride is a set it and forget it tight end, but anybody can get hurt on any play. And if McBride's that next tight end to miss time, you're gonna regret not having Hawkinson.
Let's move on.
I know, but you know how it is. Football's wild, man. It's wild.
He's already missed the game. Like he's got his. Like let's not. And you saw that. Hey, that's the scary thing too. Is McBride's back, and remember like his second catch, and I don't know who it was. Fred Warner. Someone hit him hard in the head, and I was like, oh my god, he's out. And then he kind of just shook it off and still played. I was like, oh wow, they didn't even take him off or anything. I thought that was close. But yeah, I have a lot of McBride, so it kind of worried me. It gets weird. I'm like, yeah, and then I'm like, no.
Well, and you guys know this because we're in the group chat, but I've been irritated by Malik Neighbors for the last 10 days. I'm like, what are you doing? Get on the field. You're not hurt. Right. Oh, clearly you're more hurt than they're telling us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I knew it was bad when he wasn't even like practicing after those extra days. Like that's when I was like, all right, something's really going on here. So anyway. He says Jalen Warren's also available. I'd still
pass.
Yeah, I'm like, I'd still rather have Chandler over Warren. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Paven here. Oh, you already got to that one.
Yep.
He says, if I can't get Gibson off waivers, then who would you start? Braylon Allen, Algier, or wait for the Cooks news. Both backups are on waivers in order if possible. Oh, so he doesn't even have Gibbs. He's put in a claim.
He doesn't have Gibson.
Gibson. I'm sorry.
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting. In that case, I'm probably going to go Allen. I think he has a greater chance to score a touchdown.
Agreed.
And Buffalo's like giving up the third most points to the running back position.
Yep.
I mean, we all hope that's Brees that finally has a nice game. But again, it could be Allen that sneaks in the end zone. We've seen that happen. So
it's a new play caller. So hopefully this young gentleman is smart enough to recognize who his best players are and say, oh, I should give the ball to Brees. Yes.
Yeah. I think Allen can do more with the 10 touches than Algier if he gets 10 touches.
I mean, I just the last bit of the question is right. I have it in this order: Bijan, Algier, the way that he wrote the question. Yeah, that's what he's asking for. But the backups that are on waivers for Cooks, right? Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. The goal line back is Josh Allen. Let's not forget that. So again, I just said a couple minutes ago when we previewed that game, I think it's going to be a timeshare if those guys do play. But if they're inside the 5-yard line and they're calling a running play, it's going to 17.
Probably. Yeah. So if I had to rank those 4 guys, I'm probably going to go Braylon Allen, Algier, Davis, and then Ty Johnson. Maybe in full PPR, I put Ty Johnson ahead. But
yeah.
All right, good stuff. So hopefully that helps, Thomas, man. Good luck. Hopefully you get Gibson because that's a much better option than those other options.
Dowdle or Bucky in full? Bucky.
Yeah, I think it has to be Bucky this week.
It's Bucky.
For sure, especially with no White. So those of you don't know, White's out. So
he's out.
Or doubtful. Is he out or is he like doubtful?
It's doubtful, but if he's doubtful on Friday,
yeah, you're done.
That ain't gonna be good. Yeah.
Go ahead.
J.K. Dobbins or Rico Dowdle in standard.
That's a little different.
It does change it a little bit, but I would go Dobbins here in standard because of the touchdown upside. I know that Dowdle's kind of had the backfield to himself, but he's got 2 passing touchdowns or receiving touchdowns and no rushing touchdowns, and Herbert's not slinging it. So Dobbins has been it's tough, man. But I would take Dobbins. That's what I would do. I would take Dobbins.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. I'm going to go Dobbins too. But it is tough. Like I can see how
he's got a rushing touchdown in week 1 and 2, and then obviously they're the bye, so he didn't have one in 3 or 4. But with no Gus, Kamani Vidal, yeah, I would take Dobbins.
I literally have them back to back at 20 and 21 with Dobbins ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So NPPR makes me believe that this is not a typo. It's a standard league, so non-PPR. So we're looking at a standard league here. Would you take Chuba or Tony Pollard? That one's fun. And then would you take Deontay or Amari Cooper? That one's easy for me. I'm gonna start on the receiver question because I'm taking Deontay because I just don't believe in Deshaun Watson. I know Cooper's had good run. I know he's the guy, but double-digit targets for Deontay.
Yeah, but it's the Panthers.
I mean, double
like honeymoon
target.
Yeah, I think I have to go with you there too. I mean, I didn't draft any Deontay, so thankfully I didn't have this situation. But like I have Cooper, and so like I still feel like he's still a good play every week. Again, if we're starting like the number 1 receiver for other guys, like we got Watson's still like Cooper's had big games with Watson. Like it's still possible.
When? He had
didn't he have like a 30-point game week 2 or 3?
He had 86. He had a 24-point game in half. 86. I'm looking at a half league right now where I pulled it up. 86 yards in week 3. That's it. Here's his receiving totals.
Oh, it's because he scored the 2 touchdowns that one game, right?
Correct. 16, 11, 86 and 2, 35 and 60.
Yeah, it was the 27-point game against the Giants where he went 7 for 12 for 86 and 2.
Yeah,
it was kind of all against the Giants. Like I could probably do that against the Giants.
I mean, I said on the betting show earlier, and I think Kendall and Mike covered it earlier as well on their show a little bit, or on the first half of this. I think the line on Watson's passing yardage right now is 189.5, and I'm taking the under. The under, the lower. Ugh.
Yeah, but I mean, he went 3 for 6 for 23 yards against Chicago.
Is it the worst contract? It is the worst contract in history, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Oh, that or Russell Wilson will rival it.
No, I think this one's worse than Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, because at least Wilson, I mean, they're both pretty bad.
Would you rather have a $97 million dead
biggest cap hit? So
right. Would you rather have a $97 million dead cap, or would you rather have Deshaun Watson?
Probably rather have the dead cap. I mean, if I was a billionaire, I'll just take the dead cap and try to start winning sooner. You'll recoup that $97 million.
If I'm the owner of the Browns, I am literally asking for every woman in the world who possibly has a lawsuit against Watson to come forward. I will pay for the attorney.
That's the only way they can
get out of that contract. Yeah. The lawyer's fees and all the other crap will be less than what they have to pay out over the guarantee contract.
They're about to entrap that fool.
Sounds good to me. Bye. But you know what, though?
Allegedly.
You get what you deserve. You get what you paid for. And you idiots knew what you're getting into, and you paid for that. So I don't feel bad at all.
Look at Shake and Bake now. It's like the biggest they like him doing good over here in Tampa must just be irking them.
Loving
for
his
only
life.
100 million. Yeah, only for
So
100 million.
So
yeah.
we would take Deontay over Cooper. What about the first part of the question here? Hubbard or
Yeah.
Pollard?
So I'm gonna go Hubbard there. But I literally have him back to back.
I would go.
I swear
I
they're
would go
looking at my
Hubbard.
I just took a line on this earlier. I took the higher on Josh Jacobs rushing total because I believe Arizona is like, give me 1 second, I can find it. Arizona's a bottom 6 defense against the run. So I will take Josh Jacobs in this game. Yeah, I have because you for that exact reason. I have the Cardinals actually giving the 6th most points to running backs. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if that's full PPR. I'm gonna change it to full PPR. And but yeah, either way, 8th. There you go. Allowing 25.6. I actually have Jacobs as my RB8 this week.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
Another
Bucky's not
defensive
bad. Like I still have Bucky like 15.
No, Bucky's going to be fine, but I think you're going to, I think Jacobs. Which defense would you go
you
with?
playing
Another
Brown or
defensive
Bucky?
question.
Would you play Chase Brown or Bucky? Just my own. I'm going to sneak a question in here real quick for you, Phil. Bucky or Chase Brown?
Bucky, because there's nobody else.
All right.
Chase Brown still has Zach Moss. Chase Brown still has Zach Moss, technically.
You playing Bucky or DeAndre Swift?
DeAndre Swift.
Little king of the hill here. Pollard or Swift?
Swift.
Well, okay. I have Pollard one ahead.
Yeah, well, that's why I kind of went. I had to think.
Yeah, I was hesitant. I mean, Swift against the Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think it's just because I don't like the Jaguars and it's the game overseas, and
yeah, that could be it. All right. Anyway, let's get to Austin's question. I can ask you all those questions anytime. So
yeah.
Austin's saying, another defensive question. What's
another defense on Pittsburgh or the Eagles. I'm going to take my bias out for 1 second. Because you all know I hate Deshaun Watson. I refuse to draft. I have 0 shares of Deshaun Watson in best ball. I have 0 shares of Deshaun Watson anywhere. The moral thing. Also, he sucks. But I would take the Eagles in this game.
Hey, tell us how you really feel.
I have. I've made it very clear. I would take the Eagles in this game simply because they're at home. Pittsburgh's got to go on the road. It was an emotional loss last week at their place to the Cowboys, literally on the last play of the game. I know it's Aiden O'Connell. He's not a rookie. He's a second-year guy. He has been the starter before. He's not started this season, but it's just tough. It's tough to go across the country and go on the road. And Pittsburgh always does what Pittsburgh does, man. They play games tight. They play games close. And I think the Eagles should roll in this one. So I'll take the home team, Eagles.
It's so close because I actually had that decision in one of the leagues that I still started defense in. I think I ended up sticking with Chicago over both of these defenses because I couldn't decide if one of these ones were going to be better. And I just was like, I'm just going to stick with the one I have and not like make the move and end up being wrong. Like I'd rather just leave them there and be wrong, if that makes any sense. But I mean, JJ Watt, man, like JJ Watt literally can, or TJ Watt. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. My bad. Little
wrong Watt. You did have a 33% chance of getting 33% chance of getting it right, but wrong one.
Watt, right? Yeah. The Watt brother. We'll just do that from now on. Yeah. The Watt that plays for Pittsburgh there. I mean, he could just literally take games over, and he's licking his chops going up against a not even real quote unquote quarterback.
Yeah, that's true.
And this Raiders line is terrible. And like you said, they play games close, so I don't expect a ton of points. Eagles give up a lot of points. Like their defense has kind of been a sieve. Like we've been kind of targeting their secondary as far as playing receivers against this game. That's why I kind of was hesitant on that Cooper. Like Deshaun's, like we've seen Deshaun be good. Like I feel like any game he could. I know that, like you said, you got to maybe take the personal bias out of there. But like Amari Cooper is still good. And if Watson could just get him the ball against this secondary, there is some potential there. And of course with Judy and stuff like that. I just think if one of these teams is going to let a game get out of hand, it could be the Eagles, and they could turn that more into a shootout versus it just being a low-scoring game. So for me, and I'm pretty sure they have the lower over-under, I'm going to take the the Pittsburgh defense on this one.
Yeah, there's a couple offensive linemen that are missing for Cleveland. Like, so there's sacks in this game. The pass rush, Jalen Carter, like that pass rush for the Eagles. I know their secondary is poor, but that
Did
pass
Jalen
rush
Carter
is
get
pretty.
hurt? Is he playing? Is he back?
I have to go and double check, but they got some pass rushers in that team that are still pretty good though. So it's close. I'm sorry, Austin. I know that doesn't help.
No, it is
because
really close.
I'm on the Philly side, and Rosta's on the Pittsburgh side. But
And we had 2 times that we actually
I know.
disagreed on something on this show.
Put it this way, I think
Week
they're
6.
going to finish within 2 or 3 points of it. You know what I mean? Like they'll probably
Yeah,
both
they're
get
gonna be
one
close.
turnover each, and whoever gets more sacks, wins it. So
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, looks like he's back on the
keep rocking
field. He's good to
rolling.
go.
We did some of these. We did these. We did these. We did
Ooh,
those.
hopefully we didn't miss a super chat.
We-
All right, no, we're good.
We did. PPR drop Ford, Charbonnet, Wicks for Bucky, Tolbert, Ridley, Slayton. I'm assuming he's asking to drop one to pick one. I would drop Wicks for Bucky right away.
I literally was about to say that. So the first move I'm doing is Wicks for Bucky.
That one's
Like,
the
just-
eye catcher for me.
Yeah, just have that done. Now I'm trying to determine Ridley. Ridley feels like he shouldn't be on the waiver wire, but he's actually been on the waiver wire for like 3 weeks in one of my home leagues. It's a non-PPR league, and especially with him being on a bye, and I'm not racing to go get him, so I'll leave him there. Tolbert interests me. I don't know if he interests me enough for over Charbonnet. If anything, maybe Ford.
Maybe Ford.
But again, it would, the rest of your team would have to determine, what position you may need after you make that Wicks for Bucky switch. So if you swap Wicks for Bucky, and you still need that, now you're heavy one way or the other, then maybe you go Ford for Tolbert and you kind of stay even with your construction.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just for this week, I would consider Slayton because Neighbors is out and he had the big week last week, and maybe you try to stay in the flames on that. But the Bucky Wicks swap is the easy one for me.
Okay. And then just in case, I don't know if he's asking it this week, but it does say flex advice and not like rest of season roster advice.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one of these 6 guys for your flex spot, who would it be?
Well, it can't be Sharps because he played last night. I would take Bucky.
Yeah.
I would take Bucky in this group. I mean, he's got the
think I
backfield to himself this week, and it's a game I think they should win. And Baker can score rushing touchdowns, but it's not really his forte. So I think if they are going to run it, I think Bucky has a good chance to get a rushing touchdown if they're going to score a rushing touchdown this week.
For sure. Well said. So yeah, I just, I always like to do that just in case you give any answers. Yeah.
Pick 2 in full PPR, Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift. One of these is very obvious and very easy. That's clearly Jahmyr Gibbs for us. So who do you have with Gibbsy?
Jacobs.
Yeah,
it's like my RB8 and RB4 or something like that.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yep.
Nice.
All in one show. Joseph, Slim Shady Burrow, or Captain Kirk Cousins?
They call me Slim Shady. Get him in there.
All right. Get him in there. Fire him up. Pick 2 in full PPR, Drake London, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, Dontavian Wicks.
Ooh, we didn't get to talk about this game, but I love me some Flowers this week.
Yeah.
What do you think about him in like your DFS? And I don't do that as much as you guys do. If I was putting a DFS lineup together, I feel like Zay Flowers would be like one of those guys this week.
So I actually have Darnell Mooney in my cash lineup this week because he projects so well and he is so much more affordable than Drake London is. But Higgins is hard to stay. I do not have Higgins, Flowers, or London in my cash lineup just because of price and projections and how that goes.
Oh, is he priced up because of that?
It's just price. Yeah, it has nothing to do with skill or what the matchup is. So and they have to remember too, like from betting lines, like we talked about it in our kind of like our meeting this week, right? Like we were saying last week, because I put a cash lineup together where I faded Bijan and Algier in that game because I just didn't like the matchup, right? But you would never have sat Bijan Robinson in your regular lineups.
Yeah.
I just sat him in a Thursday captain showdown. I ended up deciding to go with Kirk Cousins and Drake London, which clearly paid off. And then I went with the Bucs side of the ball, so I cashed in that lineup. But like that's the difference in a betting lineup versus like a home league or your managed leagues. Like Bijan's in there. So for the answer for this question for me though is I'm actually going to take Higgins and I think I'm going to take Flowers. I think I would take Flowers. Really? Yeah. I think there's more points in that game. Mark Andrews seems to be non-existent. I get it. London's the focal point of the offense, but again, I think it could be a good week for Bijan with Carolina. Mooney's hot. Like there just seems to be more options for
I could
for
see,
Cousins.
yeah. So like,
There's more
unless
options
London
for
does his
Cousins.
damage early,
Yes.
right? Like, as if they get away with it, maybe they salt it out with Algier and Bijan,
Yep.
and maybe some pits, underneath or whatever. And then maybe take a shot like with Mooney. Like, I could see how maybe those intermediate routes aren't going to be the routes you're maybe trying to go for.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Panthers are so terrible that anyone can kind of just go off. But yeah, I mean, Flowers and there against Washington, that could turn into a nice shootout. Again, we just saw Baltimore getting a shootout with Cincinnati.
Yep.
So again, that's why I was so high, on Flowers. So
Agreed.
I might do that with you. I might go Higgins and Flowers.
Yeah. And I don't
know if I'm gonna rank it that way, but like in this question
Correct.
for this right here, like again, because when we're ranking, you have to also, like you said, take in roster construction,
Mhm.
for the masses and where you drafted these guys. But like, if this is your wide receiver room, I don't think that's getting too cute. Like, I think Flowers and Higgins is a nice play based on where they're at.
And obviously Wicks is the easy fade in this game, but I think you have to look at consolidation of targets. Like Mark Andrews is a ghost at this point, and Bateman popped up for the first time last week, right? It took 5 weeks for him to even show up. So it's Flowers from a consolidation standpoint.
I mean, he's seen like 12 targets, multiple times, double-digit targets. So.
Yeah, I can look it up real quick. But yes, I mean, he's
good
been
stuff. All right, look it up. We'll get to it. But No Dog Gamer here says, "What are your thoughts on Brian Robinson Jr.? Do you have another hour?"
yeah, I was going to say this is a you
don't
question.
Ask me. I'm like, don't ask me because I'll go off and tell you he's basically Bijan Robinson. No, as far as his injury goes, dealing with that knee injury, they got up early. He had the 2 touchdowns early, only 18 yards last week. Sat basically the entire second half. It was a Jeremy McNichols and Austin Eckler show for the second half. They didn't really need him, which I liked as a Brian Robinson owner. Like, hey, they got him his points, sit him so he doesn't get more hurt. Like, I was all for that. It is, of course, a little troubling seeing him, now where he's kind of, trending. But I do think he will play. But you do have to kind of worry about, potentially, him not being active. As far as season-long outlook, like, I mean, he's a cute RB1. He's a top 12 type guy to me every week. He's a set it and forget it. He's like on that borderline RB1, RB2. So those are my fairly quick thoughts on Brian Robinson. I'll try to get my camera back here while you give your thoughts.
I'll be honest, I don't have much to add. I mean, I think this week is really interesting because of the injury. I think a lot of people that were looking at Austin Eckler kind of hoping, hey, if I need a guy, I've got a guy. But now it seems like Robinson could be in there. So I'm with you. Like, it's a team that's young, it's rebuilding. Jaden runs the ball, but other than Terry, there's just really not a great pass. I mean, McCaffrey's in there a little bit. We've yet to really see Ben Sennett, what we drafted him and we hoped that he would be from a dynasty perspective. He hasn't really shown up. So he's the offense right now.
For sure.
I like this name, Champagne 7. I always like when people do fun stuff like that. Like they take.
I'm
it
like
kind of
so not
words.
creative like that. So yeah,
I love it. I love it.
I love the puns, man. Those will get me every time.
Flex McConkey, Downs, or Pickens this week and rest of season.
I'll answer the second part first. In redraft, you're never really kind of thinking rest of the season. I'll take Phil's kind of approach to dynasty, and you're looking at your redraft season in a 2 to 3 game window instead of a 2 to 3 year window. Because I don't think you can make a decision because we've seen, if you would have asked me again, if I had Chuba Hubbard ranked as my, RB11 or whatever in week 6, like I would have told you you're crazy. So you can't really think of it. And we're only 6 weeks in, as far as rest of the season, we're barely not even halfway through the regular fantasy season yet. So I don't think you can really lock yourself into this. You have to always be fluid and always be mobile, ready to make moves, make trades, and just kind of adjust to the just the season and how it kind of plays out, because there is a flow to it. So that's just my thought on the second half of the question. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean,
homage to you.
The extra my own podcast name. The extra point of that would be, I just feel like the consistency of Justin Herbert is going to help McConkey because you don't know who the quarterback's going to be in Indianapolis this week, and it's Justin Fields this week. But is it going to be Russ? And I don't think Fields has been that bad. I mean, they started on fire. They obviously had the tough loss last week, but I mean, it's just so inconsistent with Pickens. Josh Downs, I like Josh Downs a lot. For me, the order is probably the way that the question is written for this
Agree.
week. But I do
And
think
Brett.
it depends on who the quarterback is going to be in Indy and in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And I mean, just like pure upside wise, I think you move Pickens to the front of that line. But as of right now, for this week, I think the order you have it is probably where I would go.
Yeah.
Maybe I flip Downs if Flacco's there. I might put Downs ahead of McConkey.
Yep.
With
Agreed.
Flacco.
Yeah. This question's interesting. I want to spend 2 minutes on it because this has come up a lot. How do we feel about Chris Olave this week?
I had to scroll down.
I'm gonna start because I have Chris. I think there are two narratives. It's hard, man. I want to say this because there's two narratives. The first narrative is you watch all the stuff on Instagram and on X, Twitter, and you see the presser, and all of a sudden, they're asking Rattler, like, what do you think about Chris Olave? What's the game plan this week? And he said, well, when I see Chris Olave, get him the ball as much as I can. Okay. I want to believe
Aiden
that.
O'Connell, Devontae Adams situation.
Yeah, exactly. I want to believe that, right? I want to believe that you see the best player on your team and you hyper target him. Here's the problem. The Bucs blitz at the second highest rate in the NFL.
Anyway.
Which means pressure is going to be in that young man's face real quick. So is he even going to have enough time? And no Ryan Ramczyk. So is he even going to have enough time to get the ball out to Olave running? I think it's a great Alvin Kamara week. I think it's a fantastic Alvin Kamara week with from a pass catching PPR standpoint, lots of checkdowns, right? Rattler looked okay in preseason. We know he can throw it, but you got to have some time. You're not going to get a big run this week because Vita Vea is there and he's a run stuffer. So I want to believe that it's possible. I just can't quite get there. I think Rattler's going to be okay. Put it this way: in my cash lineup in DFS, Rattler is $4,000.
I was going to say, I heard he's kind of the
stone. He is the stone minimum.
Yeah,
I said it on my show. Don't do it. I'm considering doing it just because I can get so many other guys.
That's what
I can get
thinking.
CD and Amon-Ra, all these other guys that should project so well. I can get them into the lineup, right? From a real perspective with Chris Olave, though, you're just hoping for the touchdown. I mean, that's really what it is, because I think he'll try to hyper target him, but we just don't know. We don't know enough about Rattler in a non-preseason game, so I'm not feeling stoked.
Yeah, my 2 cents on that. I have him as my wide receiver 26 this week.
Yeah.
Again, he's kind of in that. I'd like him as a wide receiver 3. Can't really get too many other guys ahead of him there, just with that potential upside and everything you were saying about him potentially hyper focusing on Olave. You think Rashid Shaheed's probably going to take the bigger hit just because he's kind of that deeper guy. Will he take that shot, and risk the turnover? His job's not secure and he's trying to put good tape out there. So, and like you said, that's to me what makes Kamara. I mean, I have Kamara as my RB4 this week because of that as well too. So we're thinking the same thing. Yeah, fire him up. So yeah, man. So again, I still think Olave, he's going to be a wide receiver too. That's just kind of where I have him, on most weeks. He'll always have that potential to, have a QB1 or wide receiver 1, week. But for the most part, he's pretty much a set and forget wide receiver 2 for me at this point.
The good news, Gio, is I expect the Bucs to be winning the game and the Saints to be chasing it. So that's positive for Rattler having to at least try. Maybe it could be a turnover. He could take a shot, and that turns into an interception. But he's going to have to at least try to push it at some point, I think, down the field. So
for sure.
Mark,
hold on, before you get to it, I got to say what's up to my my guy Ron. It's been a minute. Good to have you back. As you can see, he has the moderator badge here. So longtime friend of the show, part of the ambassador team. So again, appreciate you, Ron. Done a lot of artwork for me that you guys see on my avatars and Sleeper. Good artist. Hope the fam's doing good, my guy. Good to see you catching the live stream, man. Out there in Philly, holding it down for
late. Yeah, that's
Philly,
like
man.
quarter to 1 a.m. in the morning, man.
For sure.
Mark Folkman wants to know: Chase Brown, Antonio Gibson, Tank Bigsby, and Jerome Ford. Start 2 of these young gentlemen in half PPR. I actually think this is for me anyway, I think this is a pretty easy decision.
Brown and Bigsby to me.
I agree. Yep, that's exactly right.
This one's more interesting.
This one, Alec Helton, and I was like, I don't want to answer this question.
Yeah.
Alec Helton would
You
like
guys
to
we
know.
both love.
I was
Just
going to say,
put that
can you
out there,
start
yeah.
them both? Devonta's like, why are you in this?
CD
Like, first of
behind
all,
him?
how good is your
Yeah.
team that this is your problem, Alec? Good for you, buddy. Like,
For
Devonta
sure.
Smith or Brian Thomas Jr. So BTJ, who has been fire the last 2 weeks, going on the road to London, and of course Devonta Smith at home. I really wish my rankings hadn't broken and frozen, because I would like to answer this with some math, but give me 1 second.
While you're doing that, I'll say I have Devonta Smith just barely ahead of Brian Thomas. I have Smith at 19 and Thomas at 22, but it is close, man. I see why you're asking the question.
I would play Smith. It is really close, but I like the Bears defense better than I like the Browns defense. And I think that's what's going to be the tiebreaker for me, because you can go into the metrics and say Devonta Smith, but AJ Brown's back, but Saquon's there, right? The game could get completely out of hand, or they end up running the ball a bunch if the Browns can't keep up. Whereas I think the Bears are going to win the game, or at least be a close game. So Jacksonville should be in it. And clearly BTJ has been the focal point of that offense, especially the last 2 weeks. So there is that, but I just like the Bears defense a bit better in that game.
Yeah, that was definitely my determining factor why I kind of split them. And also the fact that I like Smith coming off a concussion more so than like any other type of like lower body type injury, because then I think it might take time for him to kind of get ramped back up, so to speak, and just kind of get a feel for it and feel comfortable on that knee or ankle or, something like that. And maybe, with the concussion, hopefully he's just, right back to normal. And there's also the slight chance, and again, I don't want to put it out there.
Don't say it. Just don't say it, because I've
We all
waited.
know
I've
it.
waited.
Okay.
I've waited the whole season to put him back in my lineup.
All right. There is that. I mean,
I got one. So. We all did. We all got one great week 1 from AJ Brown, and then he's been a spectator, and he's back. He's back, baby. He's back.
Only a couple weeks, so
don't
we'll
say
see
it.
how
We're
that
just
goes.
gonna move on.
We'll
all in one show. Pick one flex PPR: Swift, Pollard, London, Wicks. In full PPR, I'm taking the receiver.
I think so too. Yeah, he's enough ahead of these guys in their own, respective tier in their positions that I'll take London.
And he's still the number 1 in that offense.
And it's a good matchup. So yeah.
Michael Lopez, is Darnell Mooney and Jordan Addison for Pollard a good trade, or did I lowball? 12-team full PPR redraft. I assume that this means he got Pollard.
I'm assuming so. I think if anything, like maybe you might have paid a little much, but I like that you're kind of selling high on Mooney. Addison hasn't done. I mean, he had that 2-touchdown game, but not great. But I love me some Addison. But the way running back position's going right now, to pull off a trade and get a running back of that caliber that someone was able to get off of, to me, that's the cost of getting a running back right now. So honestly, don't mind. But I mean, I'd rather keep those guys in full PPR and just kind of roll out some other, type RB2 or see who gets hurt next and maybe play the wire game there. But, I mean, I don't think it's terrible. I just personally probably would have preferred to keep the 2 wide receivers there.
I would have kept the 2 receivers. Yeah. I mean, it's RB 23/25, depending on format for Tony Pollard right now. It's always hard when you go 2 for what Kendall says. It's a lot. So I'm going to give Kendall the credit. I'm not going to steal his line here. When you make a trade that's a 2 for 1, to get that second player back in your roster is someone off the waiver wire. So I'm curious to know who he pulled off the waiver wire to go with Pollard, because that's what you traded Mooney and Addison for, right?
Like if you got Juju, if maybe someone dropped Watson and you got Watson with that, then I like that a lot better than just kind of 2 for 1 and really not kind of having someone relevant, on off the wire. So
I agree. Yeah.
Straight
up though, with the question, I'd rather have the receivers, but I'm curious. Michael Lopez, if you're here, throw the guy that you got in the waiver wire, because that evens the trade for us information wise.
For sure.
All right. Can you read this one? I need a sip of water.
Yeah. No, good. I was like, I feel like I dominate the mic a little too much sometimes. So got to give my boy some mic time here. So Matt, we can go in here. 89 says Lamb and Devontae Adams for Mahomes and Dobbins in redraft is a bogus trade, right? Or am I tripping? So Lamb and Devontae Adams for Mahomes and Dobbins. I'd say it's a little lopsided on the Lamb side there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're definitely, feels like you don't have to pay that much for Mahomes right now. Like people are sitting him, potentially dropping him. I've heard in leagues. Dobbins is a guy we kind of got off the waivers or drafted super late for basically the 101 or 102 in your league. I mean, I wouldn't say like as a commissioner, like I wouldn't say it's vetoable, but I would say the guy getting Lamb and Adams, and not even being the Adams fan, like I think he got the better end of the deal on this one.
Holmes is QB 15 right now. Like, can we just say this? Please stop drafting quarterbacks early. This is the social proof of why you do not draft them early.
Unless it's Lamar or Jaden Daniels.
I mean, even that, yeah, but even then, it's like, ask me where I got Jaden Daniels in my redraft.
Oh, yeah. No, he was drafted as people's QB2s like in the 13th round.
12th freaking round, man. And the only reason I took him in the 12th round was because I didn't think he'd get back to me. So I panic reached and took him around early, and I was still very happy that I got him in the 12th round. So yeah,
for sure.
It's hard, man.
There's always guys like that. And then again, you have your Bakers and all these other guys who are, QB1s, instead
Jared
of these guys like
Jared Goff was like a waiver wire pickup last year, and he finished his top 10 QB. So it was like, you don't have to pay for that.
Love did that last year.
I got, well, you know this. I got Love off the waiver wire in a dynasty league. Oh, thank you.
That's in the super flex or 1 QB?
Super flex.
That's ridiculous.
No, he just sat there because he never played. Rodgers was still there. He was just sitting
Makes
there.
sense.
And so I was scoping before. It was in between the Super Bowl and the draft. And I was like, there can't be anybody here. Like you're always trying to find someone. There's no one here. I'm going to go grab some, garbage tight end.
No way.
And I was like, Jordan Love is here. Click.
Wow.
And then Aaron Rodgers gets traded and Jordan Love becomes the guy and had, what was he, QB5 last year, QB6, right? I was like, what a find.
That's
Talk
a
about gold mine.
Yes, that's a nugget. Well done. Well
that
done.
was,
You ready to read it off or you want me to keep going?
Let's do it. Nope, I do it. Young Breezy, half PPR, Garrett Wilson or Devonta Smith. The Bills secondary is pretty good this year. Thanks for the advice, guys. I know where I want to go with this.
I mean, you want to say Wilson, but I feel more comfortable with Smith, to be honest.
I was going to say I want to go with Smith.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's where I want to go. I mean, I understand why you would go Wilson here, but it's more about the fact that Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback right now than Aaron Rodgers is, and Garrett Wilson he's been bad, man.
It took him 22 targets to even have a decent. It wasn't even like he went Chase outscored him. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't even the wide receiver 1 overall and had 22 targets. So imagine giving Neighbors 22 targets from Daniel Jones and he'll do better than what Rodgers to Wilson's kind of
those names in that sentence make me need to brush my teeth.
Exactly, right? But that's what I'm saying. So give me Devonta Smith and that all day. So there you go.
Here's one for you, Joe Ortiz. I dropped Chase Brown for Bucky with the news of White going to be out. What do you think?
I'd like to keep both of those guys. Who else do you got? Who else do you have?
Yeah. Because
I feel like Chase Brown is on his way taking over this backfield, whereas when Rashad White comes back, he's not the pass. Rashad will always have that passing down work, and he's going to get 5 to 8 carries, I think, minimally a game just to keep the defense honest, because you can't just have one guy in and just tip your hand. So he's going to see, anywhere from 5 to 8, maybe 10 touches and have anywhere from 4 to 7, receptions, some of those designed and some checkdowns. So, I mean, unless it's non-PPR, that's the only way, that I would kind of do this. Because again, Brown has the, receiving upside and he's starting to, feels like he's putting a work or doing better, more efficient on the ground.
Yep. I don't have anything.
I want both of them.
I don't have anything to add. I mean, I wonder if you could have found someone else to drop, and if not, then we'll Monday morning quarterback it after Bucky has, 2 touchdowns and Chase,
probably right.
Chase Brown goes 3 for 34. So.
Yeah. He'll have 13 carries for 2 touchdowns and 80 yards. Yeah.
Jelly of the month, drop Wicks, wide receiver 5'6" for Juju Smith-Schuster and half. The answer is yes. Tied to Patrick Mahomes. No Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce finally, for the first time, had a decent week last week. And Xavier Worthy is a deep threat / gadget guy right now. So, yeah, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, definitely take your shot.
Joe Ortiz, start 2, Monty, Dobbins, Bucky, or Najee. One of these is really easy. Monty's clearly in there. So the question then, I assume the question for you is Dobbins or Bucky. You're not starting Najee, I'm guessing.
No.
Yeah, I'm not either. So are you Bucky?
I had to go to my
or
rankings, so I have a feeling like it's close. Dobbins or Bucky. So Yeah, so I have Bucky ahead.
I do too, because I just at Denver, it's a tough game. Denver's defense isn't bad. I don't think there's a lot of points in that game, whereas I do think there's points in the Saints Bucks game.
Yeah. That's what kind of did it for me.
Joe Ortiz, this one's interesting. Goff or Allen?
We kind of talked about it earlier.
I know. I think I would take Jared Goff this week because I think it's a better game environment, because if it hits, it could hit big.
That's a tough one, man. That really is a tough one.
It could hit big.
It's honestly so hard, Joe. I just couldn't, like, I would have to trade Josh Allen away. Like, if you start Goff, then just trade Allen and go get yourself a nice running back, a nice wide receiver. Because someone like me out there would be like, oh, I'll just take my chance on Allen if I can trade him for freaking wide receiver or,
So let's do that. So let's do that. So what would you, all right. So let's say you do that. Would you take Sam Laporta? No one's going to trade Sam Laporta. Never mind. Would you take Jamison Williams and
if you say
Pollard?
Bucky Irving, I was like, if you say Bucky Irving, like that might be interesting. No,
I was thinking that, but this has been too much. This has been the Bucky show tonight. I don't want to talk about other players. Would you take Jamison Williams and give me a second? I want to get some names. I have two names in my head, but I
mean, Chase Brown would be of interest, kind of.
That was one of the names. That was one of the names.
Jacobs, I would probably counter for. Like, let's say you had Chase Brown and Josh Jacobs, and you sent me that offer, I'd probably counter and ask for Jacobs instead. If I was giving up Allen, I would kind of take that, that chance. Maybe James Conner. Maybe.
What about?
I'd like a nice wide receiver running back package.
About DeAndre Swift and Jamison Williams.
I'm not a Swift guy, so
I'm not either. But I've been trying to think of a name.
Like, I would take ETN.
ETN, yeah.
Because I'm more, even with the whole Bigsby thing, like I would still take ETN.
Okay, all right.
Probably would. Like, it would have to be around that level, low end RB2.
Yeah.
And a borderline, or mid, wide receiver 2 for Josh Allen. I'd move that if you felt comfortable starting, Goff, and you didn't want to be in this situation every week.
I mean, if Classic was here, he'd tell you he wants the consistent production each week, right? So he probably wants Goff because he likes that. He's never going to be the QB1, but he's never going to finish outside the top 15. Right. Whereas Josh Allen, that 8-point or 11-point week, he was QB. I'll look it up, but it wasn't good.
Terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't good. QB awful. Not what you drafted him to be.
Send me out of my guillotine league. Kind of have. That's why I'm like, trade Josh Allen right now. Like, he's no good.
God.
Oh yeah, man. It doesn't show you on Sleep.
No, it doesn't show you. I'd have to go back into the depths. That's okay.
It'd have to be in my. Yeah, I love how it shows it on the phone, but it's app is actually like much better than on the computer. Anyway,
no doubt.
All right, what else we got here? We're almost done.
Victor Blanco picked up Mooney off waiver wire last week. I have Drake London. I have CMC. Been struggling at running back. James Cook owner offered me him for Mooney and Terry. When he says James Cook owner, I assume he means he got offered James Cook for Darnell Mooney and Terry McLaurin.
Like Kendall says, what's your piece on the waiver wire that you can get with Cook? If not, I feel like you could probably get a little more. But I would think if Cook wasn't hurt, he wouldn't really be available. I'm pretty sure Cook is like the RB like 6 or something overall right now, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll tell you.
In full PPR, because of that big
PPR, he is the RB. Drum roll, please. 7. You were very close.
Pretty close. So good old research, right? It's all fresh in my head still. God,
yeah,
because the rankings this week were so hard. Like you had to like look at everything because there wasn't just like set it and forget it guys. Like the guys that we thought were set and forget, they're all the ones like underperforming, and the guys we thought like would never find our lineups are the ones actually putting points on benches. So like, do we get these guys ahead? That's what it felt like doing my rankings this week. Anyway, I mean, again, sometimes to just get a running back, like you might have to just overpay. So like I would try to get something else out of it, or again, depends on what that roster spot opening up does for your team, especially with bye weeks and stuff like that coming up, because that is powerful. sometimes if you're in a tough situation, like I try to go find just a 2-for-1 trade, even if I'm doing something like this, just to open up that spot so that I can get the win that week, or at least try to compete for the win and not have an empty roster spot or put someone that I'm just kind of stashing in that I'm not really ready to play, if that makes sense. So, I don't value, I value that empty roster spot just as much as who you're going to pick up off the waiver in that spot. So I can see how being in that situation with CMC, how you can, make that move. Because again, if you literally just got Mooney off the waiver wire, really you're just trading Scary Terry straight up for Cook is kind of how I look at that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what you were invested in that team, like Mooney hasn't really done anything for you. You're not really, attached to him. That's when he's easy to ship off with Scary Terry and turn that into James Cook. So now that I talk myself into it, I don't think it's as bad as it initially kind of felt when you take it all in.
Well, let me give you some social proof. I offered Ladd McConkey and James Conner for James Cook. That did not get accepted. I offered Ladd McConkey and James Conner for Monty. That did not get accepted. So there's some real world. I was as you were talking, Ross, I was like, wait a minute, I just did this the other day because I'm in a league where it's like I've got like Javonte, who's not great. You know what I mean? I was like, I need to get another running back because I've got Bijan right now and I've got James Conner and I've got all these wide receivers. So I can afford to lose. Like, do I want to lose one? No, of course not. But I've got AJ Brown, Tank, Debo, T. Higgins. I've got a huge, you know how I draft. I always super wide receiver heavy.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can afford to give one up. And people are just holding running backs. So there you go, guys. I know that doesn't help you, Victor, but there's a 2-for-1 that I've offered 2 different examples and neither one of them got even countered. So
the fact that you can just get someone's willing to part with the running back 7 overall.
Yeah.
I think you just take your chance with that, man. And find someone to start this week, obviously, because he's probably not playing this week, but
sure.
I don't mind that at all. Again, especially since you weren't invested in Mooney really at all. So
Agreed.
And you have London. So it's honestly perfect. You're splitting that up. So I actually like a lot more. Good job. All right. Who else we got? Gio in here?
Yeah, I might have one.
Oh, Michael responded to his question about his Mooney and Addison for Pollard.
Yeah.
I think
He had Shaheed, McConkey, and Dell, it looks like. And then I think he grabbed somebody. He planned to pick up
Walker
Juju.
Dobbins already as a starters.
Puka on IR. I want to talk about this for 10 seconds because I also have Puka on IR. Would you just drop him?
No.
You think he's coming back?
Yeah.
So
he's not hurting you if he's in your IR. I mean, unless you have other people you need to put in your IR.
Well,
maybe, but I can't.
I wouldn't either, but that's why I was at, because I just saw today it's another 4 weeks at least for Puka.
Ooh, I didn't see that update.
So now we're talking
about we didn't have that game on the. Or no, they're on
now
by this week.
Yeah, so now we're talking about week 10 at the earliest.
I mean, remember, people were drafting and stashing Kyler Murray knowing he wasn't coming back until week 12 last year, and he ended up being kind of a league winner towards the end. And people were trying to trade for him and get him and all that, off that ACL. So, everyone says that until the guy's ready to come back. Regardless if there's 2 or 3 games left, they're like, "Oh, I'll take him." You know what I mean? The analyst and you kind of wants to say, "Well, you're only going to get him for X amount of weeks," but when those weeks are here and it's a matter of I need to win to get in. You'd rather have Puka than, Xavier Legette, right?
And let me correct myself. It was a month ago from I didn't read the date of the press. That's my fault for not doing that.
Okay.
That was 12 days ago.
Okay.
So it's another 2 to 3-ish weeks. Okay. So it's not as bad as I thought. Okay. So maybe I just read it because I haven't checked in on him.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I have
stashed there and I was
I'm just whatever. Once Cup comes back, I know until Cup's back, Puka's well behind Cup. So
yeah.
But yeah, so good stuff, Michael. So who else we got? Gio, I think is where we left off. Go ahead. We'll wrap it up here.
Having Laporta and Kraft is tough right now. Thinking about just flexing Kraft. I'm not always a huge fan of playing 2 tight ends. I get it. I was going to say I get it. Kraft had 2 touchdowns last week. But I do think of the Packers as a poor man's 49ers, where it could just be anybody's week. So what else do you have? What else do you have?
IR makes it interesting.
That makes a difference.
So again, I feel like I'm going to answer this exactly how I answered the Josh Allen question. If you're even debating trading Sam Laporta, who you probably spent a second or third round pick on, go trade him for a second or third round, quote unquote value. Package Laporta and somebody else and a running back, your RB2. Try to go buy low on Brees or Bijan or someone like that, right? Before they pop off on one of these, games. So,
what do you think? I don't know, man. Laporta to me is. You think
you
get that?
I know you and Kendall weren't.
You think you could get that? No, we were not big on him at all. He was he was literally on he was on the thumbnail of the do not draft list.
Yeah.
And if you watch that show, it was obviously 6-7 weeks ago when we did that show because it was before the season. Do not sit here and go, you guys don't like Laporta, you don't know what you're talking about. No. What we said was do not draft Sam Laporta at his price, which at the time was the second or third round because he had 10 touchdowns last year and negative touchdown regression was 100% guaranteed. Sam Laporta has, count him up, Rasta. You ready? Is 0 touchdowns.
I'm like, where's my camera?
I have scored as many touchdowns in the National Football League this season as Sam Laporta. Yes.
You and me both. So,
yes.
There you go. So. I still think he has name value. They're coming off the bye, kind of out of sight, out of mind. Hasn't really done anyone dirty or did anything.
And it could be great. It could be great after the bye. He could go off, and I still don't think he gets the double-digit touchdowns, but he could have 6 to 8 touchdowns the rest of season. Sure.
Because you said that he's going to have a 2-touchdown game now, right?
That's fine. He could have 2 touchdowns. Wait, hold on. Am I playing against him? Let me see real quick.
He's playing against you.
No. Yeah. We need Amon Ra this week. It's an Amon Ra week for us.
Oh, okay, there we go. There we go. All right, good stuff. Let's see. He said he already has Jay Moan.
Yeah, I think a lot of these are just kind of comments and questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to look if there's any other questions here.
Tank or Devonta Smith?
Ooh, that's a little closer, but I'm pretty sure I have Smith ahead.
I have Smith.
Yeah, I still have Smith ahead.
Full PPR, need a flex one. Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, or J.K. Dobbins.
Ooh. That's all like a mishmash of
that's
a bunch of sameness there.
Whatever the opposite of sexy is. I want to say ugly. It ain't ugly, but it's not pretty.
Nah, it's just mid.
Is that what the kids call it these days? Mid?
Yeah. I think that's what my kids say. Yeah, it's a bunch of mid.
With the drip.
Yeah. Gosh. You asked me 2 weeks ago. It's like ETN, and I'm like, why are you even asking this?
I think I know.
If I had to rank them, I'm going to go ETN, Kirk, Deontay, Dobbins. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I would go ETN, Dobbins. Excuse me. I would go ETN, Deontay, Dobbins. I would have Kirk at the bottom. I still believe in Kirk, but BTJ's there, and just it's like look at the.
He had the one big catch last week, so it's going to look a little planted. He still only got 4 targets. Yeah,
4 targets week 1, 3 in week 2.
Yeah, the 63-yarder helped him.
It saved his week.
Yeah, but my guy hasn't scored, less than 12 fantasy points the last 3 weeks. Again, Chicago's tough, but again, if Chicago is susceptible anywhere, I think the running back position is the one. I'd love to have it split out on what they give up to pass catching running backs.
Right.
I need to find that source. I need to break. I have the full PFF. I'm sure it's in there. It's just there's so many stats in there. I'm like, it's almost overwhelming sometimes. Makes my head explode.
Yeah.
We didn't have the Chicago game on. Damn it.
No, that was a Kendall Homer game.
Those guys,
I just feel like we should get all the Niners games and they should get all the Bears games, right?
Well, that's how we usually did it. And I even asked. It was on Thursday, so I technically got to talk Niners with Frank on Wednesday. He should have popped in on that show,
right?
But I even asked Classic. You noticed we got the Giants game. I even asked him. I was like, "You want to switch us?" And he's like, "Nah, you guys got it." So I was like, "All right."
No, it's good to talk about him every now and again. Yeah,
it was like one time.
All right, let's end with this one here. George, should I drop Charbonnet now to pick up a tight end to start this week? More info on the sleeper chat.
Oh man, you're what's up, George? By the way, he utilizes the sleeper chat. I don't want to say more than anybody, but I love how often he takes there. So good conversations with him. Your league allows you to drop a guy after he's played. That's wicked.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to ask. But
yeah, that's wicked.
So it says, I've got Tolbert as my wide receiver and need a tight end because he has Kelsey on bye week. and then he's going to try to pick Charbonnet back up throughout the week. You're going to have to spend fab, and probably decent fab, because Charbs will be the most attractive name on the waiver wire, I would think.
Maybe. I mean, everyone's kind of seen
think.
what Walker's done, so there's a chance you kind of get him back.
No, it's not. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking like compared to what else is going to be out there.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like, unless there's someone just trying to like fill a spot, you know, like, oh, Sharps is out there, let me get him.
Because somebody will pick up Ty Johnson this week, and as soon as James Cook is healthy next week, they'll drop Ty Johnson to go get Charbonnet.
Right,
like that's what will happen.
Against that,
you have to fight against that, exactly. So,
I mean, you're gonna get a guy that scores you like 2 points unless he scores a touchdown.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, George, who's out? Who else is? Give us your tight end options. Who's there?
Yeah. What's your record? And
what's your record?
5-0, just as long as your league doesn't give you auto loss by not having a.
And why Charbonnet? Charbonnet can't be the worst player on your team.
It might be though, because this might be his 8 or 10 man league.
Okay.
So I know he plays in one of those, like a smaller league, which to me those are harder than like 10 or 12 man leagues.
Way harder.
Yeah. Because you have to make
everybody's good.
Yeah, like you have to make some nasty choices.
Yeah. How do you? Yeah. I mean, how do you? I was just thinking of a couple names. I was like, how do you leave certain guys like? How do you leave James Conner on the bench in that kind of, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah, because you have like Gibbs and Bijan or something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Gibbs and Kenneth Walker. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Right.
Charbonnet, but yeah,
you're tough. Yeah. So
well, hold on.
That one's tough, man.
Real quick.
I personally, if I could roll without the tight end position, again, as long as it's not like a tight end premium, I mean, tight ends are barely like. Literally like 13 points is like tight end one every week, if that.
So here's my main redraft league. Here's some names on the wire. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Dalton Schultz, Pat Fryermuth, David Njoku. Would you drop Charbonnet for any of those 3 players? Because Kelsey hadn't exactly lit the world on fire. So, I mean, I get it. You probably want to plug and play Kelsey every week and just not worry about your team, but Schultz, Fryermuth, and Njoku. Fant already played, and then it gets ugly. Ertz, Gesicki. So those 3 names are good names.
The only one that actually even kind of sparked some interest is Fryermuth. I've actually started in the last 2 weeks, and it's been pretty decent. He was kind of wicked the first couple weeks, but again, not enough. Like, there's not enough like security there to say like I'm going to drop someone like Charbonnet, because you know he even has somewhat of. I mean, he only scored like 4 or 5 points I think this week against us, but. Like, he's definitely being worked in. Like, even with Ken Walker killing it, he still has somewhat of a role. And then we've seen what happens if Walker gets hurt again, right? With all his usage he's getting.
Kenneth Walker was running off the field on 3rd down last night.
Yeah. Like, Charbonnet has a role there.
Yeah.
But they were throwing a lot to him on 1st and 2nd down, those screens. Like, Walker was still catching a lot of passes. Like, it was nice to see.
He was 8 for 8 last night.
Really? That was that much? I haven't even looked at stats
yet. He was
yet.
8. Well, we had it on the show earlier today, so it was fresh in my mind. Yeah. He was 8 for 8.
It seemed like a lot. That's why I was like, I know it stuck out to me. I was like, even if he was off on third down, it still seemed like he was being worked in it. So anyway, but good stuff. So yeah, I just want to know, George, who else, like you said, who else you kind of have out there, or if you can just not have a tight end, because I don't think you're really, I mean, unless you're going up like against McBride, like you really don't have a advantage. Just hope the guy you're playing against doesn't score a touchdown. You're probably only going to be 1 or 2 points off on that tight end position.
It's fair.
So, like, I don't think those guys are, maybe besides Fryermuth, Schultz, maybe, and then whoever else you said as the 3rd. That's who I'd rank them.
Yep.
So, anyway. All right.
Man.
Anyone else? Just real quick.
Smokey the Cat came back with, we answered it. We answered it earlier.
Yeah, good stuff.
Chase Brown.
Smokey has the same question. Irving or Chase Brown. Yeah, we went Chase or Irving on that.
Lucky, yeah.
What defense stream week 7? He has the Broncos. Are we on week 7? Chris,
next
hopefully
week.
Hit that subscribe button for us, man. Come back to us next week, because I don't even know who I'm playing next week. We just take it a day at a time over here, man.
Nope.
Day at a time.
Yep.
Good stuff. All right, man. So with that said, good hour we got under there with questions. We appreciate you guys, dropping those in for us. Again, if you're watching this later and you drop a comment on the actual video itself, we'll answer it there. You can always ask us questions. Get a hold of us directly, at P Ruskin on Twitter or X. I'm at Ross DeFarn. All of our contact info's in the description. There should be no way why you guys feel like you can't get a hold of us to get a question answered. A lot of guys here in the chat know that you will get a response from myself, from Phil, from Kindle, from Classic. If you reach out to us, man, we love talking fantasy football, not just here on the show. It's pretty much what we do all day, every day. And so, yeah, other than that, I want to give the floor here to my guy so he can tell you, where you can find him and what he has going on his channel. So go ahead, Phil, take it away.
Appreciate you. Yeah, so obviously I'm part of the Get Right Fantasy Network. I will be here every Friday night with Rasta doing the main show here. But I have my own show on Wednesday nights where we go through all the Dynasty content. We're talking about trades. We're talking about long-term values, contracts, players you should be targeting. We are going to have a just continuously running throughout the offseason as well. And then you can also catch me on Thursday nights where we will be going through our DFS content. That's going to contain Thursday night captain's cards, anything that you're going to be trying to find from underdog as far as higher and lower. For those of you that are in those weekly picks or in those confidence pools, I will be giving my weekly picks as well as my confidence points assigned to each of those as well. So no matter how you play fantasy, whether it is redraft, whether it's keeper league, dynasty, and you're looking to play in that DFS contest in cash and in GPPs, larger tournaments, we got you covered. So the link is in the description and in the chat. Hit that like and subscribe button. If the live show isn't something you can catch every week, go on over to Spotify and Patreon, and you can find me at the Extra Point and listen along in podcast format as well.
There it is, man. Like a true champion. Appreciate you, Phil, man. I love your addition here to the channel. So glad I connected with you and Kindle, man. And this has been a nice, fun journey here. So make sure you guys go out and support this guy, man. He puts in a lot of work for you guys here to bring this content, to share it with you. And, we're here to try to help you guys win leagues, man, and have some fun doing it, hanging out with us here on the live shows. We're live pretty much 7 days a week, every day but Saturday right now, and we even have some things in the works. We might have 2 or 3 Saturday shows live coming up actually here pretty soon. So we're trying to bring you guys as much content as we can to be able to, most importantly, too, on all the live shows that we do, we're taking your live questions. So we want to help you guys out, man. A show for the people, by the people. So anything else you want to add to this week 6 before we set it off and see what happens?
He snuck one in here. Evans, Flowers, Higgins.
We're a sucker for not answering all the questions, so let's do it.
It's Evans and Higgins for me.
Yeah, I think you got to. Oh, and I've been waiting for this week 6 matchup between Evans and Lattimore, man. It's just good football to watch. Like,
it's good
fantasy
football,
out the
man.
window. Like, I just love watching it. Yeah.
I mean, I think people are like each other. I was going to say, are we going to see another bench clear, or are we just going to see, whatever normal football game? I think we see another football game.
Yeah. So. Or 2 times ago they played. They
2
got
times
ejected.
ago
they
got ejected.
So let's go, man. It's always fireworks when these guys play.
Let's go.
And they're going to be talking shit with Carr not even there, so we're gonna see what happens. So I'm looking forward to it, man. So from all of us here, man, we've been live for almost 4 hours now here on Get Right Fantasy Network. Hopefully you guys caught part 2. Again, this is or part 1. We're part 2, breaking down all these games for you. Classic will be back here Sunday morning to do the last minute active inactive. So any of those guys we had question marks on here and couldn't quite give you an answer based on those injuries, he will be here Sunday morning for you. So be sure to tune in. And if he's not here, it might be myself. I think Kindle might be popping in. So maybe that might entice Phil. I saw his face change a little bit. He might want to jump in. Okay, he's out of there.
I'm getting up. Well, because it's West Coast. We got to get him watch that early game. We got to watch that 6:30 game.
Right.
And then I am riding my bicycle up the street to the beach bar because I'm going to the Niners game next weekend.
Oh, that's right.
So this is my last week to sit and watch football games, because I'll watch games obviously next weekend, but we got to get tailgate. We got we got things to do, man. So,
you got to take in the week.
I won't. Rasta, I won't be here next Friday.
That's all good. I'm going to game. But hey,
I'm going to the game.
Broadcast from the game, my guy. Broadcast from the game.
Oh wow! Could you imagine?
Just do like a little show? You got to go live for a little bit.
I got us tickets. I got us tickets to the the pre-party right across over at Great America.
Oh,
because they had Great America across the stadium.
Yeah.
So I got us tickets to that. So food, booze is all included, and they have NFL Network with all the games broadcast. So me and my buddies are just gonna sit there at 8 in the morning and just start partying
the games.
and just watching all the games. And I told the boys, I was like,
bring the setup.
I know. I was like, I don't know if I can like leave
go
like an
live.
hour like to get in the game. Like, 'cause my boys are all like, let's go watch warm ups. I'm like, I might meet you in the stadium like right around kickoff because I don't know if I can just like not watch games. So yeah, man, I'll be out when
Too much of a
we're going up to the Chiefs. We're sitting 30 rows off the field, man. Section 1. We're sitting right in the corner there, 30 rows up. So
dude, share some pictures. I gotta see it.
Oh yeah, you know. I wonder if Taylor will be there.
You'll know by the security.
Jesus, you're not kidding.
Yeah, for real. All right, good stuff. All right, man. So that's it, man. We'll have our 30-minute goodbye here if we keep on going. But again, we appreciate all you guys. Again, thanks for hitting that subscribe button for us. Again, make sure you hit that like button as well. Help us get out to more folks here. Bring them into the community here. Bring them into the Get Right Fantasy Network family. So from all of us here, man, for Dustin, for Frank, for Tycoon, for, of course, my guy, Classic Mike, our boy Kendall, and then my guy, Phil here. From all of us here, man, have a good week 6. Let's take down those W's, and we will see you guys on Monday to overreact to it. Peace out. Well, technically Sunday with Classic, but I'll be back here with you guys.
We out.
All right, peace out.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tuned every